From 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Thursday, the 21st of May. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver. Well, Andrew files revealed. New documents reveal the late Queen was very keen for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to take the role of trade envoy on behalf of the government.
More breaking news from the last half hour. 11 members of staff in the NHS have been sacked for inappropriately accessing the medical records of the victims of the 2023 Nottingham stabbings. We'll have the details throughout the programme.
Violent ex-soldiers from countries such as Iraq or Afghanistan have been spotted along the Belgian coast at locations used for small boat crossings. That's according to the police.
And as the illegal migration crisis worsens, new statistics show that net migration is at its lowest level since 2021, down nearly 50% year on year. But of course, as those legal numbers come down, more illegal individuals than ever are living in government-provided accommodation. We'll be crunching numbers with Mark White.
Yes, the government says that the number of migrants in hotels has fallen to around 20,000. But what does that mean? That means more are in houses of multiple occupation on a street near you.
And yes, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves is unveiling her new cost of living plan today. It includes free summer bus rides for children.
Hi TikTok, I want you to be the first to know that this summer for kids aged between 5 and 15, there's going to be free bus travel in England. And this is just one of the things that we are doing to help people with the cost of living.
Well, fresh from being heckled and enraging the supermarkets yesterday, today we expect the Chancellor to say that this summer she wants every family to be able to enjoy themselves. But will the measures she's going to outline make any difference to you and your family?
Well, it's full steam ahead for Great British Railways, our new nationalised trains. But what do you think of the new branding of these trains? We'll be live in Brighton.
Yes, today Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, unveiled the first GBR branded train, which you may be able to see behind me. But will full nationalisation of the railways make life better or worse for commuters? Find out more with me very soon.
And single-sex guidance out today. Yes, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, is going to ban trans women from female toilets.
Watch the moment the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is accused of running the country into the ground by a furious man in Leeds.
I love our country, and one of the things about our country is good manners. Not very British. Right.
Goodness me, there's a lot to talk about today.
It's busy, isn't it? It's, despite the fact that it's getting sunnier and summer is approaching, feels like we're full steam ahead for the news agenda. Speaking of which,
We've got a train.
New trains. I'm actually slightly... I mean, putting aside all of the sort of serious stuff about how this stuff will work, on a very, very trivial note, every single train, national train in the country now, is going to be branded in exactly the same way.
It's rather nice, isn't it?
I don't like that.
No?
I quite like how...
Well, it's better than the obnoxious sort of pride flag ones. But rather garish.
But I think it's quite nice to have different regional identities for trains.
OK,
So
well...
I'm a big fan of the livery on the Great Western Railway. It's a sort of deep racing green, English racing green, and it looks incredibly classy. Now it's going to look quite tatty. And
Quite bland. To be fair, it's not a very dramatic rebrand, is it? You barely make out the Union flag, really. It's sort of spread so far back that it doesn't really look... You know, you want the flags everywhere if you're going to do it, surely.
But also, I think there is utility in, OK, the train that goes down to the southwest, that's green. The train that goes up to Newcastle, that's red. The train that... You know, there's got to have some sort of differentiation.
And we could name one the Lioness Line. We could name one the... As a streetcar did.
Looks identical. Am I making a mountain out of a molehill here?
I think so, yes.
I mean, I'm keen to hear what you have to say.
Can't you just be happy that we have a patriotic rebrand there, even if you don't believe in the old nationalisation?
I'd much like it to be classier. I think it's a bit scooch.
Tom knows what is classy and what is not.
I think
he
a nice,
is
deep
the arbiter of such a
much
thing.
classier than
I reckon I'd design a
Eurovision-style livery that we're getting.
I'd reckon I'd design a classier train than you, Tom.
Well,
anyway, we've got Mark White in the studio because there's some shocking immigration news. We'll be getting to that straight after the news headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. Just after 12 o'clock, the top story this hour. Newly released government files show the late Queen was very keen for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor to take on a prominent role promoting British interests. A memo from 2000 says Queen Elizabeth wanted him to become involved in trade promotion before he was appointed UK trade envoy the following year. The government says it has since found no evidence that formal due diligence or security vetting was carried out at the time. The Liberal Democrats say the small paper trail is deeply concerning and are now calling for mandatory vetting for all similar appointments. 11 NHS staff have been sacked today for inappropriately accessing the medical records of victims of the Nottingham attacks. Nottingham University Hospital's NHS Trust says the dismissals follow an internal investigation into staff viewing records without a legitimate reason. Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates were stabbed to death by Valdo Calocane in June 2023. The Trust says 12 other staff have also received final written warnings and 2 have received first written warnings. It has informed Nottinghamshire Police and the Information Commissioner's Office with further investigations still ongoing, including into records of surviving victims. The Foreign Office has summoned Israel's most senior diplomat in the UK over a video showing Israel's National Security Minister taunting detained activists from a Gaza-bound flotilla. The UK says Ben-Gvir's conduct was inflammatory and violated basic standards of respect and dignity. The boat was intercepted by Israel in international waters on Tuesday, before those on board were taken to an Israeli port. Several British nationals are understood to be among those involved, and the Foreign Office is now in contact with their families. Ministers say they are deeply concerned by the detention conditions shown in the video and have demanded an explanation from Israeli authorities. Here, Rachel Reeves is due to set out a package of measures aimed at easing the cost of living squeeze from the Iran war. The government will cut import tariffs on more than 100 products, expected to include items like biscuits, chocolate, dried fruit and nuts. Children aged 5 to 15 in England will also get free bus travel on participating local routes throughout August. But immediate help with rising energy bills is not expected. That's despite forecasts of a sharp rise in the price cap from this summer. Net migration to the UK has fallen to 171,000. That is the lowest level since 2021, with new figures showing the amount has halved in a year, driven mainly by fewer non-EU nationals arriving for work. Sir Keir Starmer says it shows his government is delivering on its promise to restore control of Britain's borders. Separate Home Office figures also show asylum claims fell by 12% in the year to March, while the number of asylum seekers in hotels is down by around a third. But asylum claims remain more than double the level seen just before the pandemic. And the Green Party has this morning announced Chris Kennedy as its candidate for the upcoming Makerfield by-election. The vote will take place on Thursday, the 18th of June, following the resignation of Labour MP Joss Simons. Last night, the Conservatives selected former Wigan Mayor Michael Winstanley as their candidate. Andy Burnham has been selected for Labour, Reform UK selecting Robert Kenyon, while Restore has announced Rebecca Shepherd. And Alan Howland Lord Hope for the official Monster Raving Loony Party. Those are the midday headlines. More news in half an hour now, though. Let's get straight back to Tom and Emily.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 12. Now, we are expecting to hear from the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, in approximately 10 minutes or so we will be bringing you that. But in the meantime, newly released files reveal that the late Queen was very keen indeed for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to take on a major trade role representing the UK.
Well, a memo sent to the then Foreign Secretary, Robin Cook, said that the monarch wanted her son to play a prominent role in the promotion of national interests before he was later appointed as that special trade envoy.
Well, we're joined by the royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Richard, did we know this already? Is there something new that we're learning today? Was the Queen more involved than we first thought?
Well, this was always thought to be the case. And, I mean, you can see the logic looking at it, for example, at that time, because going back 24 years, there was so much that we know now, even if he denies it, that was not known at that time. And the Duke of Kent had spent 25 years as special representative of British trade and had done extremely well and very honourably. And Windsor at that time, Prince Andrew, and a war hero in the 1980s, there's absolutely no question that it was thought that being a member of the royal family, being the Queen's son, that this would be very helpful. Of course, the position, I mean, it's an absolute catastrophe. And it was in 2011 when it was seen with photographs of him with the now deceased paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, but after he'd been released for prison for child sex trafficking, and then the infamous photograph of him with his arm around Virginia Roberts Giuffre. This, of course, meant that he had to step down from his position in 2011. But at that time, you can see why the Queen thought that a role of that type would be beneficial.
Absolutely.
You can. Richard, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. We've got to go live to Downing Street now. But Richard Fitzwilliams, thank you very much indeed. Let's go live to our political editor, Christopher Hope, who has just left a briefing with the Prime Minister's official spokesman. Chris, what news do you have for us?
Yeah, hi Tom, hi Emily. Yeah, here from Downing Street. So Number 10 are pretty pleased with the last day of Parliament sitting before their wit break next week. They're off for another 10 days, having been off for 10 days earlier this month, of course. They say things are moving in the right direction. They say this government's approach on net migration is working with that big fall. Net migration is now down 3/4 since the general election, they say. They're accelerating, taking asylum seekers out of hotels and moving them into what they call more suitable accommodation. Now, we asked, does that mean that an HMO in someone's street is more suitable accommodation? They said that's what they believe. They are fixing this broken asylum system. The government also says there's no evidence of what they say is any mass exodus of Brits leaving the UK. That's because within that net migration figure, there's quite a big number of people leaving the UK and going overseas, Brits leaving. They say, in fact, these figures show a slight fall in the emigration figures. Elsewhere, Number 10 poured cold water on suggestions from Wes Streeting of a new wealth tax that's equalising the tax levels on capital and income. They say we already have a progressive tax system where those with the broader shoulders should pay more. And other areas that came up in this briefing with the PM's spokesman on Prince Andrew, they say say there'll be a statement later today from Chris Bryant, who's one of the culture ministers in the House of Commons. They're saying that they are publishing the documents as quickly as possible to comply with a motion passed in the Commons proposed by the Liberal Democrats. On Rachel Reeves being heckled, accused of ruining the country by a man in a white van yesterday, the government says that the Chancellor's response speaks for themselves, and she's focused on the cost of living and making Britain a stronger and better place. She's speaking later in the Commons momentarily in the next 5 minutes, and of course later on to other journalists, but not to GB News today. Elsewhere on the football, big concerns about the fact the Champions League final will be, for the first time in 30 years, not available free to watch. The government will not get involved with this. Number 10 says it's a commercial decision by the rights holder, but the PM would like it to be involved by as many people as possible, because of course Arsenal is playing Paris Saint-Germain in that final a week this weekend. We are expecting this guidance later today from the European forcing all public bodies, schools, hospitals and universities to adhere to women-only spaces in toilets as part of this ruling from the Supreme Court. That is coming today. The government says that this will ensure that all duty bearers, that's those public bodies, will have to uphold the law and provide clarity for women and those service providers. And just to clarify also on the issue of supermarket food, the government has confirmed that it is not their policy to have government-mandated food prices. That's not something they're looking at, but they will keep talking to supermarkets about reducing the cost of living.
Christopher, it's been a difficult day or so for Rachel Reeves. I mean, it's been a difficult tenureship, really, of being Chancellor. She was heckled yesterday by a Reform UK supporter who essentially said she's ruining the country and that we need to get Starmer out. She replied saying, "I love this country, fantastic stuff." She's called him impolite, didn't she?
She said, "I'm British."
And she said that fuel duty being frozen would be something that he could be happy about. What are we expecting Rachel Reeves to announce today that might cheer up someone who is very angry indeed, like that man yesterday?
Well, that man yesterday may benefit from this, what we think will coming after Rachel Reeves' speech, which could be a rise in the mileage rates for those self-employed. That means you can claim back 45p a mile for a journey taken in a car or a van, and that could help the person who was heckling Rachel Reeves yesterday. We'll hear more today from this £100 million being spent on free bus travel for those children aged 5 to 15 in England just for August, so that will fund trips to the seaside, trips to amusement parks and the like for children. That's how they're spending the money. And also some tariffs are being cut from what they call agri-food. That's imported nuts, dried fruit and chocolate for chocolate biscuits, that kind of thing. And that's where we'll be hearing more from the Prime Minister, from Rachel Reeves. She says this summer, "I want every family to be enjoying themselves." She left number 11 Downing Street when I was last standing here, and I did shout to her, "Thanks for your plans for the summer, Chancellor, but will you be Chancellor by Christmas?" And that is a real question away from government, because of course everyone expects a leadership challenge against Sir Keir Starmer at some point. Not sure who it's from yet. It could be Andy Burnham, it could be Wes Streeting, but what's clear is all these big jobs are already being discussed by people outside of government. The latest tip is for Ed Miliband to be the Chancellor to an Andy Burnham premiership. We'll see how that plays out. As for the Chancellor, she told a group of MPs last night in the building behind me in 11 Downing Street, she's determined to keep doing what she's been doing all through this year. The work of government in the Treasury absolutely continues, and she even launched what's known as a TikTok account last night, which young people will know is a social media account.
Goodness me. Well, looking forward to those edits of the Chancellor, but she's on her feet now. Let's listen in.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And with permission, I will make a statement on the government's economic response to the war in Iran and the action that we are taking to support families and businesses with rising costs. Madam Deputy Speaker, the government has the right economic plan. I said I would grow the economy, and last week the Office for National Statistics confirmed that Britain's economy was the fastest growing in the G7 for the first quarter of this year. We beat the Office of Budget Responsibility's forecast in the spring, with economic growth at 0.6% in the 3 months to March. And because of the resilience of our economy, this week the International Monetary Fund upgraded Britain's forecast for this year. I said I would cut borrowing. Borrowing last year was £20 billion lower than the previous year, and the latest forecasts show it falling in every year of this Parliament. The IMF has backed our economic plan, saying that the government's fiscal framework strikes, and I quote, a good balance between deficit reduction and growth-friendly spending. I said I would cut the cost of living. Since the election, interest rates have been cut 6 times. Real wages have continued to rise in every single month since I became Chancellor. And yesterday, the ONS confirmed that inflation fell in April faster than expected, making the UK the only G7 economy where inflation fell last month. Madam Deputy Speaker, we have the right economic plan, but the conflict in the Middle East poses a significant challenge to the world's economy, including our own. I have not shied away from my criticism of the war. I believe it to have been a mistake. Nor have I ignored the costs that it will bring to bear on the British people. I have been clear-eyed about my duty to do what I can to support families and businesses, to be responsive to a changing world and responsible in the national interest. Next week, Ofgem will confirm the level of the energy price cap that will apply from July. I know that any increase will be felt by families. Because of the decision that I made at the budget last year to cut £150 from energy bills, we have lessened the impact of rising prices, and current external forecasts suggest that the cap from July will be at a similar level to the cap in April last year. We stand ready to act if market conditions worsen significantly later this year, and I have been leading cross-government contingency work on design of potential future targeted and temporary support. For businesses, any support will also need to be carefully targeted at firms most exposed to the crisis. But while many firms have been insulated from recent price rises through fixed-price contracts, there are sectors that face particular structural issues related to energy costs. That is why we have already increased support for our most energy-intensive industries through the British Industry Competitiveness Scheme, and we've brought that forward. And it is why we have also built resilience in our critical infrastructure and industrial strategy sectors, where supply chains are critical for growth and security. Following representations from my right honourable friends, the members for Redcar, Mid Cheshire and Bathgate Linlithgow, and building on the good work of the Minister for Industry, I am today establishing a £350 million Critical Chemicals Resilience Fund to support strategically important producers. And having listened to my right honourable honourable friends, including the members for Stoke-on-Trent Central, North and South, and my honourable friend, the member for Amber Valley, and workers represented by the GMB union, I am today announcing a new £120 million fund to help our historic ceramics sector, helping them to increase efficiency and drive down energy costs, because we will always stand up for British industry and for British jobs. The government has also this week set out additional targeted support for those businesses most exposed to rising fuel costs. For hauliers, the government is granting a 12-month road tax holiday for HGVs, saving the typical heavy lorry up to £912. To support farmers and the rail freight industry, I have decided to cut duty on red diesel by over a third until the end of this year. And having heard from my honourable friend, the member for Oldham West, Chadderton and Royton, and the trade union Unison, I can today announce a 10p per mile increase in tax-free mileage rates, backdated to April 2026, benefiting those who need to drive for work, from care workers to plumbers. Madam Deputy Speaker, when a country faces challenges because of higher oil and gas prices, we must ensure that those who benefit from increased prices and volatility pay their fair share. In my first budget, I extended and increased the Energy Profits Levy. Last year, I announced a new permanent windfall tax regime on oil and gas prices. Last month, I increased the electricity generator levy, alongside further action to weaken the link between high gas prices and electricity prices. Today, I am bringing forward specific changes to the taxation of foreign branch profits, changing how companies are taxed in relation to their overseas activities. Currently, some oil and gas groups that operate overseas through foreign branches have structured their tax affairs in a way which ensures they pay little or no corporation tax on their UK energy trading profits. Today, we are putting an end to that practice. We expect these reforms to raise hundreds of millions of pounds a year and fund the package of measures set out today, with costings certified by the OBR forecast in the usual way. Madam Deputy Speaker, I know the pressure that family finances are under. That is why I have already taken action to provide help. I increased the national living wage and the national minimum wage to their highest rates ever. I have frozen prescription charges for 2 years in a row, and I've frozen rail fares for the first time in 30 years. I've taken £150 off energy bills, which contributed towards the fall in inflation last month. But I want to go further, and today I am taking further action to ease the burden on family finances. First, on fuel duty. I have already extended the 5p cut twice since the election, and I can confirm today that there will be no rise in fuel duty this year, recognising the pressure that the war has put on fuel prices. Second, I know that the cost of the weekly shop is often one of the biggest worries for families. So last month, I met with supermarkets to urge them to do all they can to keep prices low. And today, I am taking action by suspending tariffs on over 100 different foods sold in supermarkets. And I am clear that I expect supermarkets to pass these savings on in full to their customers. And third, I will not tolerate any company exploiting the current situation to make excess profits at consumers' expense. So I am bringing forward tough new powers so that the Competition and Markets Authority and other regulators can take action when firms break the rules. Fourth, for many families, driving is not always an option. Buses are the most popular form of public transport in Britain, with over 4 billion journeys made last year. I have already extended the £3 bus fare cap to March 2027, and today I can confirm that bus travel across England will be free for children aged between 5 and 15 throughout August. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I recognise that what matters for families is not just getting by, but being able to enjoy time together without worrying about the next bill. That is why I am launching the Great British Summer Savings Scheme to help families and support our hospitality sector. So I can today announce a temporary cut in the rate of VAT on summer attractions from 20% to 5% over the summer holidays. This will apply to ticket prices for both adults and children, covering attractions such as fairs, theme parks, zoos and museums. It will include children's tickets for cinemas, concerts, soft play and the theatre. And it will cut the cost of children's meals in restaurants and cafes from 20% VAT to 5% as well. These changes will apply across the UK, from the start of the Scottish school holidays on the 25th of June and run until the end of school holidays in England, Wales and Northern Ireland on the 1st of September. Madam Deputy Speaker, this government has the right economic plan. We promised to grow the economy, and we have. We promised to cut inflation, and we have. And we promised to cut the cost of living, and we are. Promises made by a Labour government, promises delivered by a Labour government, and I commend this statement to the House. Chancellor.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and could I thank the Chancellor for advance sight
of her statement, though, of course, the press got even more advanced sight of it. Madam Deputy Speaker, the decision taken to cancel the increase in fuel duty is welcome. It has been a long time coming. The Conservative Party has been campaigning against the fuel duty rise for months, but the Chancellor has defended that policy repeatedly. That left motorists and businesses worried about even higher fuel prices in September. It was always obvious that the fuel duty increase would need to be cancelled. Obvious to everyone except the Chancellor. So can I ask, why did the Chancellor fight us on fuel duty for so long? Why has she been so hell-bent on raising fuel duty during an energy crisis? Well, inevitably, Madam Deputy Speaker, the U-turn has finally come. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, it is astonishing to hear the Chancellor claiming that the government can afford to help households because the forecasts have improved. Is the Chancellor seriously suggesting that the economic outlook is now better than at the time of the last fiscal forecasts, when we have had the Iran conflict, to which our economy is highly exposed thanks to this government's ruinous choices? The Chancellor has just pointed to the IMF forecast being upgraded this week. But let's be very clear about what is going on here. The IMF adjusted their growth forecast for this year up slightly to 1%. But until April, they were forecasting 1.3%. So where exactly is the supposed growth dividend? Will she directly address that point? This is exactly the same game that the government played last year when they U-turned on cuts to the winter fuel payment. They claimed then they were U-turning because the economy was improving, when of course it was due to political pressure. Nobody brought it then, and nobody is buying it now. Once again, we have a weak government caving into the inevitable after spending months defending a truly terrible decision. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Chancellor claims the measures announced today will be funded by a number of different tax measures. But most of the measures she mentions are already in place and baked into the OBR's forecasts. So given the Chancellor has not announced any measures to control government spending, can she confirm that, in fact, the measures she is announcing today will be funded at least in part by yet more government borrowing? And can she confirm whether fuel duty rates will still be rising to the same level as previously planned after December, or whether today's announcement will mean a permanent reduction in fuel duty? Madam Deputy Speaker, whilst we on this side of the House welcome some of the measures the Chancellor has taken today, like the increase in mileage allowances, this is all very minor compared to the inflation this government have fuelled since coming into office, and the tax rises that the Chancellor has imposed. Today's announcements will bring little comfort to the hundreds of thousands of people who have lost their jobs, to the countless businesses that have folded, and to those high streets which are now hollowed out. The reality is that we are in a terrible position to deal with the consequences of this latest energy crisis, thanks to the actions that this government has taken. The Chancellor claimed growth is up. It is actually down. She claimed borrowing is down. It's 75% up compared to the plans that she inherited. She claimed she's fighting inflation. We have the highest inflation in the G7. She claimed she's cutting energy bills. Energy bills have gone up under this Labour government. And of course, she didn't mention unemployment. On the energy, Madam Deputy Speaker, on energy, this government have made a conscious decision not to exploit our own natural resources in the North Sea, weakening our economy and our energy security, whilst importing oil from Putin's Russia at the cost of Ukrainian lives. Families and businesses are facing rising costs and rising taxes. People are losing their jobs. The country is hurting. If the Chancellor was serious about the challenges we face, she would commit to getting spending down, tackling the benefits bill, getting taxes down to strengthen our economy. But thanks to the Chancellor's mistakes and the weakness of this dying government, this statement today is all we get. Does the Chancellor really think this is enough?
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Let me take the issues that the Shadow Chancellor has raised. First of all, on fuel duty. When I became Chancellor of the Exchequer, the freeze in fuel duty was due to expire under the plan set out in the final budget of the Conservatives within a matter of months. I've frozen fuel duty twice already, and I've frozen it again today. And indeed, I've frozen it with more than 3 months to go before the increase was due to happen, giving people plenty of time. I have always said since the Middle East conflict began that I would keep an eye on what was happening to oil and gas prices and set out plans ahead of the change due to come to effect in September, and that is exactly what I've done. But I've also gone further in 3 specific areas, with additional support for hauliers, additional support for red diesel, particularly helping the rail, freight industry and farmers, and also the higher mileage rates. And the Shadow Chancellor says he welcomes the changes on mileage rates. Well, it's the first time they've been increased since 2011. So if he welcomes them so much, why didn't they increase them when they had 14 years in government? On the Iran conflict, well, let's remember that this is a war that the UK did not start, that this government chose not to join, whereas the Conservatives and Reform were cheering on that conflict every step of the way. And the impacts on the UK economy and the global economy would be much more severe if we'd have heeded the warnings of, heeded the pleas of Reform and Conservatives to join that conflict. The Shadow Chancellor talks about inflation and growth. Well, inflation yesterday, the numbers showed that inflation had fallen. We're the only country in the G7 where inflation fell last month. The IMF have revised up our growth forecast, and we had the fastest growth of the G7 in the first quarter of this year. And the Shadow Chancellor says, is this going to be paid for with new borrowing? No, it's not. If the Shadow Chancellor had been listening, he would have heard the changes we're making around the foreign branch exemption. That will raise hundreds of millions of pounds a year, which is why we're able to afford the package that we have announced today. The Shadow Chancellor mentions high streets. Well, because of the Pride in Place money that I announced at the budget, because of the banking hubs, and indeed because of the changes we made to business rates, which have actually seen business rates for retail and hospitality come down, and come down significantly compared to the plans we inherited from the Conservative government, we can reinvigorate our high streets. The Shadow Chancellor mentions borrowing. Well, borrowing has fallen below 5% for the first time since 2019 because of the actions that I have taken as Chancellor, and borrowing is expected to fall in every year of this Parliament. Very different from what happened under the Conservatives. Employment and activity remain in the top half of the OECD and of the G7, and the biggest benefits boom came under the last Conservative government when the Shadow Chancellor was the Work and Pensions Secretary. And on oil and gas will play an important role in our economy for many years to come. But we also need to invest in renewable energy, which is why we announced yesterday restrictions in the number of judicial reviews that are holding up investment in clean energy. It is a shame that the Conservatives voted against our Planning and Infrastructure Act. It's a shame that the Liberal Democrats abstained on it, but we are determined to get Britain building, including the energy infrastructure we need to get bills down. And just a couple of weeks ago, I announced changes around tiebacks to make it easier for oil and gas companies to exploit their reserves of oil and gas in the North Sea. And Jackdaw and Rosebank would have gone ahead if it hadn't been for the last government messing up the way it legislated. And we are going to be announcing shortly the decisions. The Secretary of State for Energy and Net Zero will make those decisions. But I am very clear. Oil and gas will play an important role in the UK for many years to come, adding to our energy security alongside investment in nuclear, in small modular reactors, in floating offshore wind, in onshore wind and solar, opposed by the party opposite.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, it never fails to amaze me that the Shadow Chancellor tries to lecture this government on inflation when many of us were here.
Well, there we have it. The Chancellor announcing a string of new measures with all that money that she doesn't have. Well, this is a curious set of announcements.
Yeah, Tom, we have a new Eat Out to Help Out scheme for children.
Effectively, yes, and free bus travel and all sorts of goodies. Although, it has to be said that the reason that the Chancellor was a little late on her feet was she was being scolded by the Deputy Speaker for having announced one of these policies on TikTok instead of having announced it in the House of Commons.
It's quite ironic, isn't it? Because the government's talking a lot about social media bans and trying to get kids off social media, and then they're advertising free bus travel for children on said social media. But there you go. Shall we speak to an economist about all of this, make sense of what Rachel Reeves has actually just announced? Mitchell Palmer, who's from the Adam Smith Institute, a free market think tank, for us. Mitchell, Rachel Reeves talking about cheaper imported biscuits. She's talking about no rise in fuel duties. She's talking about cutting VAT on nice things for children, particularly over the summer holidays. Lots of free bus travel for children too, and trying to get that cost of the weekly shop down by saying to supermarkets, please pass on savings. Will it work?
No. Although I guess the question is, what is her objective? It sort of read like a program for election if the election was held of children, a sort of student government election. To be honest, it was a lot of attempts to basically cover up for the problems that the government has created in other aspects. I think that's particularly true of the industrial subsidies that she announced. So, you know, hundreds of millions of pounds for the ceramics and chemicals industries. Of course, you know, they will welcome that, but the only reason that those industries are struggling is because energy costs in this country are higher than anywhere else in Europe. So, you know, I think the government has realised that there are real problems that their policies and, of course, the policies of the last Conservative government have created. But rather than solving that by addressing the root cause and getting rid of the policies, they're just adding intervention on top of intervention, and it simply won't work.
Right, trying to sort of scoop out the problems that has already been made by policy. I want to ask you about the funding of all of this, because the Chancellor was saying that this can be afforded because growth has been revised up. But then the Shadow Chancellor got up to say, well, yes, growth has gone up from the 0.8 we expected it to be last month, but when the last set of fiscal forecasts were made, we were expecting growth to be at 1.3%. So we're actually 0.3% below where growth should have been, which means that there would have been a deficit. But instead of trying to plug that deficit, she's gone and spent more money.
Yes, I'm not quite sure where the confidence comes. Of course, she does have headroom that she could be spending out of, or equally, of course, tax revenue doesn't always go directly in line with economic growth. So, for instance, if the economic growth is in highly taxed sectors, you can see the tax revenue increasing on the other side. I'm not privy to those numbers, and of course the OBR won't have done any numbers because the OBR and the Treasury work in a very strict relationship. The OBR only costs in its budget windows. So this will be Treasury numbers guessing at what the OBR is likely to give her as headroom at the next fiscal event. But she's clearly confident that either she's not going to be Chancellor next fiscal event, or there is some money down the back of the couch that she's found.
Now, Mitchell, a lot of families will be looking at these announcements about the summer holidays and all these summer attractions, things like theme parks, zoos, etc., fairs, soft play, and thinking, oh, from 20% VAT to 5% VAT, how much cheaper will it be for me? How will that work in practice? Will those tax savings be passed on ticket prices? How will it work?
So it's not necessarily true that the tax cuts will be passed through one-to-one to consumers. That will depend, of course, on basically the economics of the particular sector. Some of those tax cuts will necessarily go to the firms as profits for them. But some of them they are likely to pass on, and that will just depend, that'll depend area to area. You might see, for instance, a lot more pass through in really competitive areas where there are lots of options for kids, less pass through in areas where parents only have one or two things they can do with their children. But we don't actually know. I can't tell you with any great certainty.
Mitchell, should we worry about her giving more powers to this regulator, to the CMA? She seems to be threatening businesses. She only spoke about supermarkets, I think, with respect to this, but she seems to be threatening them that if you don't pass on all these savings that I'm granting you, if you don't make sure people can afford their shop, the regulator's going to go after you.
I think we should be worried about that. We don't want to introduce price controls through the back door, and we certainly don't want to threaten businesses with regulatory intervention in order to make them do what we like. If the government wants to force the business to do something, it should take that political hit, pass the legislation, and do it. If it wants to sort of nudge them into doing it, I think that's often inappropriate and likely to backfire.
Mitchell, a lot of people sitting at home might be wondering, what's the problem with politicians telling supermarkets stop charging such a high price for these products? People might want cheaper products.
Absolutely, but it is very unlikely to work. So if you cut prices, you necessarily have to allocate those products in some other way, right? So we're going to get queuing, we're going to get limits on how many, loaves of bread you can purchase, and equally, we're also going to remove the incentive for firms to, make more of those things. So price controls don't work. They didn't work in the 1970s when successive governments tried to stop inflation through price controls. The only way to stop inflation is to have sensible monetary policy and ideally fiscal policy that helps. This won't slow inflation. It might make bread cheaper, but it's going to push up the price for other things and make you queue for it.
Yes, well, Mitchell Palmer, thank you very much indeed for talking us through all of that. You're an economist at the Adam Smith Institute.
Well, now let's speak to... no, let's not. Let's go to the Great British Giveaway, because after all, bread is getting much more expensive, so why not win £76,543.21? Think how much bread you could buy with that. Well, it's all tax-free, so Rachel Reeves can't get her hands on it, and it can make those summer months over summer special. Yes,
how much soft play you could buy.
Now that the VAT is down to just 5%, so much more than you could before.
I'd be going every day.
Details how to win.
We're counting down to a spectacular summer. It's your chance to win £76,543 and 21 pence in totally tax-free cash. A lump sum that you could have in time to splash out with this summer. Imagine all the things you could do with that cash. Give the garden a glow up, max out on a new motor, or just make sure the coming year is your year. And because it's tax-free, you get to keep every single penny for a chance to win £76,543 and 21 pence in tax-free cash. Text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up. Yes, it's full steam ahead for Great British Railways. That's the first branded train you're seeing there, unveiled in Brighton.
It'll be there live, but if you're in search of some holiday sunshine, perhaps even further than Brighton, well, here's the forecast for some of those weather destinations in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're heading away for this bank holiday weekend, well, there's plenty of sunshine across western areas of Europe. In the east, though, there are some thunderstorms as well as hail. But for the Canary Islands, plenty of sunshine, temperatures in the 20s. Similar story for Portugal, Spain, southern France, as well as Italy. But as we head further east towards Greece and Turkey, that's where there's the risk of thunderstorms. There's hail in the mix with these showers as well. But it does look a bit drier into next week. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow. We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Today is Victory in Europe Day. Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight, Tuesday, the 8th of May.
This historic proclamation by Winston Churchill was a moment for the nation to rejoice. Celebrations were held across Europe to mark the end of the Second World War. 81 years on, V-Day is commemorated. At Deangate Care Home in Barnsley, a special party was held to honour those who helped defeat the Nazis all those decades ago and to thank veterans at the home.
We are a veteran-friendly home, and I like to showcase all of our veterans at any time of the year, and V-Day is just a perfect reason, really, to really put them on a pedestal and show everybody how good our veterans are and the local community is. We should be so thankful for what they've done.
For the veterans here, the sacrifices of those who gave their today for our tomorrow should never be forgotten.
The main thing is that my father's medals, which I wear on my right side, is just a tribute to him and that he served all the way through the Second World War. And, of course, myself, when I served 22 years afterwards.
I think it was vital that they remembered this VA Day and, that we carried it on.
Their dad was the only one left out of 5 in that tank. So he was injured in there, and he was in the 8th Army under Montgomery's division.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some of you are so funny getting in touch saying they're worried about these free bus fares for children because teenagers will just ride the buses all day long in the summer, irritating and causing havoc for those who use the bus normally. Joyride,
Just sit down on the...
Joyride, pelleting other passengers with God knows what, listening to their iPhones.
There's a new bus in London that Sadiq Khan opened that goes all the way around. It's called the Superloop.
Oh, yes.
And I don't know how long it would take to... I'm kind of interested.
That's something for you to do this weekend.
Maybe I'll try that this weekend. Just sit on the Superloop and see how long it takes to go all the way around London and back to where it started.
You can vlog it and speed it up for us all, and we can play it out. That'll be exciting.
That'll be a marvellous couple of hours of content here on GB News.
Anyway, trains, Great British Railways. The branding has been unveiled in Brighton.
Yes, the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, says it marks a step towards a more joined-up, publicly owned railway.
OK, well, Olivia Utley is there for us, our political correspondent. Olivia, how's the train looking?
Well, as you can see behind me, still sitting there, that is the first GBR branded train. There was lots of fanfare, lots of excitement here at Brighton today as Heidi Alexander unveiled it. This is not the first train line to be brought into public administration. SWR was brought in last year. The big question, of course, is will it actually make life better for those commuters who rely on the railways? Well, after SWR was brought into public ownership, there was actually a spike in delays and cancellations, a spike of 50% in the first couple of months. Now, today, the Transport Secretary put that down to teething issues and said that commuters on Southern Railway, as it was, Great British Railway as it is now, shouldn't brace themselves for similar delays and cancellations. She claims that if you look at the figures, then it shows that actually publicly owned railways are doing better than privately owned ones. If you look very closely, yes, there has been a slight spike in improvement, but experts suggest that it's not a big enough spike and not sustained enough to show that one is better than the other. We are expecting all trains to be brought into full nationalisation by the end of next year, and the proof will be in the pudding after that. Heidi Alexander says she holds herself to the highest standards. It'll be really interesting to see whether or not she steps down if private, publicly owned railways don't live up to what the government is promising.
Well, Olivia Utley, thanks indeed for competing against the overhead announcement there, which sounded quite loud there down in Brighton Station. I just have to ask, we've only got a tiny bit of time. Your impression of what it actually looks like in person?
Well, it looks quite swanky. Red, white and blue, all decked out like the Union Jack. I don't know there are lots of train enthusiasts here today. Wonder what they're going to make of it. Some people quite like the sort of different regional branded trains. Don't know what this sort of identikit look is going to go down among train enthusiasts. But I have to say, perhaps just because it's clean and newly painted, it looks pretty good.
Thank you very much, Olivia. We'll do a poll, see if people like it. Olivia Utley, thank you very much indeed.
I wonder how long the bright white doors will remain bright and white.
Oh yeah, they'll probably graffitied before long anyway.
Or mud. Well, see you after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hotter weather is on the way for this bank holiday weekend, and it's starting to turn warmer and sunnier in the south today. Cloudier further north, with still some rain to talk about during the next 48 hours. We've got low pressure sitting to the northwest of the UK, high pressure building in from the south. That is going to clear the skies across southern England and South Wales. It'll take some time, so some places not brightening up until early to mid-afternoon. The cloud remains for North Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and outbreaks of rain will move through parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still, it's going to be a warm afternoon for many, despite the cloud further north. It's not going to be chilly, and in the south, temperatures approaching the mid-20s. But we've got more persistent rain heading in for the end of the afternoon, heading into the evening for Northern Ireland into southwest Scotland. A few showers for many other parts of Scotland, a lot of cloud cover, and a keen breeze as well, particularly towards the north and the west. Lighter winds further south, and a beautiful end to the day across Wales, the Midlands, the south of England. Once the sunshine turns up this afternoon in these places, we might not see much cloud around for at least a week or so. Now, the clear skies extend into northern England, parts of southern Scotland overnight, but Northern Ireland, many parts of central and northern Scotland keep the cloud. And we've got further outbreaks of rain, mostly confined by the end of the night to the north of Scotland. A mild, if not warm night in places, mid-teens in the south. And then we start off with a lot of sunshine across many parts of England and East Wales. Still some cloud across western fringes and some low cloud at that, so murky around coasts. Outbreaks of rain continue to affect the north and northwest of Scotland, but for much of the rest of the UK it's drier and it's significantly warmer, 28 or 29 in the southeast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're counting down to a spectacular summer. It's your chance to win £76,543 and 21 pence in totally tax-free cash. A lump sum that you could have in time to splash out with this summer. And because it's tax-free, you get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's Vox Populi, Vox Day.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Thursday, the 21st of May. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
This government has the right economic plan. We promised to grow the economy, and we have. We promised to cut inflation, and we have. And we promised to cut the cost of living, and we are.
Inflation, of course, is higher than it was when they took office, but that's by the by. Chancellor Rachel Reeves unveils her new cost of living plan aimed at easing the impact of the Iran conflict. Measures include free bus travel for children across England during August, I should say. The Tories say the announcement will bring little comfort to struggling families and businesses throughout the country.
Once again, we have a weak government caving into the inevitable after spending months defending a truly terrible decision.
Well, in other news, the Andrew files it's been revealed that the late Queen was very keen indeed for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to take on a prominent role in the promotion of national interests. That's as a batch of documents relating to Andrew's appointment as trade envoy in 2001 have been released.
11 members of staff from the NHS have been sacked after inappropriately accessing medical records of the victims of the 2023 Nottingham stabbings. We'll have all the details throughout the programme.
And shocking stuff this, violent ex-soldiers from countries such as Iraq or Afghanistan have been spotted along the Belgian coast at locations used for small boat crossings. That's according to the local police. Well, as the illegal migration crisis worsens, new statistics show net migration is at its lowest level since 2021, nearly 50% down on last year. But are the figures as positive as they seem for the government?
And big tech targeted. Britain's regulator demands tougher action from TikTok and YouTube to protect children online.
And we got single-sex guidance out today. Yes, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, will ban trans women in female toilets.
Too hot to work. Labour is considering making it illegal to work when it's too hot as part of the drive for net zero.
And deja moo. Scientists have discovered that cows can recognise the faces of people they know and can also match voices they recognise to the right faces. What will we do with that knowledge there? Now, for regular viewers, you'll remember that I was, in fact, named after a heifer, or indeed a heifer was named after me.
Other way round.
A heifer was named after me by a very kind farmer.
3 decades ago, when little Emily was born, which reminds me of a cow. No, a heifer was named after you on the farm that you visited.
Yes, indeed, down in Exmoor, and Patrick was a bull was named after Patrick, but he's been eaten.
Yes, sadly. Oh well.
But that's how it goes, isn't it?
Circle of life.
That's the circle of life. I just can't remember what point I was making there, Tom.
I think we were talking about how majestic cows are. You know, they stand in the field. They are solemn, great beasts whom we should respect
and eat.
Only
on occasion.
Only after a long and happy life in the field.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about. Lots of you getting in touch about Rachel Reeves' cost of living plans there, the cost of living crackdown, whatever that means. Yes, lots of freebies for people, but there are some tax cuts in there.
Yes, or cancellation of tax rises. So fuel duty was going to go up. She budgeted for fuel duty going up, and now the Chancellor has said that fuel duty will stay where it was. You could argue that's a tax cut. I would argue that is not a tax rise.
Mary O'Connell's got in touch saying she has the mental image of Tom on the Superloop all weekend now, bottle of pop and some cheap imported biscuits. Yes, Tom was going to ride the bus because it's free for children.
I'm not sure I'd get away with claiming that I'm under, was the age 16? I'm 15. Not sure, 15.
You have to be 15. Well, you never know. You never know. Anyway, but yes, we're going to have cheap imported biscuits, so that's rather nice, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
back cheap British business.
Yes, cutting tariffs where we can is obviously very good, and of course that's something that we can do thanks to our having left the European Union.
I'll keep your views coming in. gbnews.com/YourSaver. Let's get to the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. Just after 1 o'clock, the top story this hour. Rachel Reeves has announced a temporary VAT cut on summer attractions from 20% to now 5%. The Chancellor says it will apply from June 25th to December the 1st, covering places like fairs, theme parks, zoos and museums. Children's tickets for cinemas, concerts, soft play and theatres will also be included, along with children's meals in restaurants and cafes. The Great British Summer Savings package will also include free bus travel for children in England during August, food tariff cuts and higher tax-free mileage rates. The Conservatives, though, say the government has been forced into a U-turn on fuel duty, but Rachel Reeves says she is responding to the impact of the Middle East conflict. Newly released government files have shown the late Queen was very keen for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to take on a prominent role promoting British interests. A memo from 2000 says Queen Elizabeth wanted him to be involved in trade promotion before he was appointed UK trade envoy the following year. The government says it has found no evidence that formal due diligence or security vetting was carried out at the time. Liberal Democrats say the small paper trail is deeply concerning, and they're now calling for mandatory vetting for similar appointments in the future. 11 NHS staff have been sacked today for inappropriately accessing the medical records of victims of the Nottingham attacks. Nottingham University Hospital Trust says the dismissals follow an internal investigation into staff viewing records without a legitimate reason. Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates were stabbed to death by Valdo Calocane in June 2023. The Trust says 12 other staff have also received final written warnings and 2 have received first written warnings. It's also informed Nottinghamshire Police and the Information Commissioner's Office, with further investigations still ongoing, including into records of surviving victims. The Foreign Office has summoned Israel's most senior diplomat in the UK over a video showing Israel's National Security Minister taunting detained activists from a Gaza-bound flotilla. The UK says Ben Gvir's conduct was inflammatory and violated basic standards of respect and dignity. The boat was intercepted by Israel in international waters on Tuesday before those on board were taken to an Israeli port. Several British nationals are understood to be among those involved, with the Foreign Office in contact with their families. Ministers say they are deeply concerned by the detention conditions shown in the video, and they're now demanding an explanation from Israeli officials. Well, net migration to the UK has fallen to 171,000. That is the lowest level since 2021. New figures show the total has almost halved in a year, driven mainly by fewer non-EU nationals arriving for work. Sir Keir Starmer says it shows that his government is delivering on its promise to restore control of Britain's borders. Separate Home Office figures also show asylum claims fell by 12% in the year to March, while the number of asylum seekers in hotels is down by around a third. But asylum claims remain more than double the level seen just before the pandemic. And the Green Party has announced Chris Kennedy as its candidate for the upcoming Makerfield by-election. That vote will take place on Thursday, the 18th of June, following the resignation of Labour MP Joss Simons. Last night, the Conservatives selected former Wigan Mayor Michael Winstanley as their candidate. Andy Burnham's been selected for Labour. Reform UK has selected Robert Kenyon, while Restore has announced Rebecca Shepherd, and Alan Howland-Lord Hope for the official Monster Raving Loony Party. Those are the lunchtime headlines. More news in half an hour. Now, though, it's back to Good Afternoon Britain.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past 1, and Rachel Reeves has just announced her Great British Summer Savings Scheme. Yoo-hoo, big summer blowout. To help ease the cost of living amid the Iran war.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a Frozen reference.
This is not funny stuff. This is very important.
Okay.
The plan includes a temporary cut in VAT on summer attractions over the school holidays, and also some free bus travel for children in England throughout August.
This government has the right economic plan. We promised to grow the economy, and we have. We promised to cut inflation, and we have. And we promised to cut the cost of living, and we are.
Well, the government says it will help families enjoy the summer while putting money back into household budgets.
OK, GB News chief political correspondent Catherine Forster joins us now. Catherine, there's quite a lot in there. A lot of it we had sort of heard via social media previously, or by yourself, actually, reporting to us yesterday. Were there any surprises from the Chancellor?
Good afternoon. Well, yes, there was. The big rabbit out of the hat that we didn't know about was this VAT cut from 20% to 5%. So a big cut for days out, basically. So places like theme parks, and the government has made it very clear they expect companies and businesses to pass this tax cut on directly to customers. So theme parks for everybody, adults and children, but also for children specifically, tickets for the cinema, for the theatre, for children's meals in cafes and restaurants. And of course, that goes along with the free bus travel for 5 to 15-year-olds that had already been trailed yesterday. That is just applying in August, but this broader scheme applies from the 25th of June to the 1st of September, so right through the summer holidays. And it applies not just in England, but also in Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. And I think what this is about is there's just such a sense of gloom, isn't there? And people not being able to afford things, the cost of living being so difficult for people, and the summer holidays coming, everybody worried about being able to afford the basics. And the government wants to send a message that they are doing their bit so families can hopefully have an outing, have a nice day out, not always be stuck at home worrying about how to pay the bills. So there seems to be a flurry of activity in Whitehall the last few days. Parliament goes into recess at the end of today for the half-term break, but the government seems to want to be seen to be doing things. Of course, we've had this protracted Labour civil war now in a sort of lull for a few weeks while we see what happens in the by-election. But they want to send a message to people that they are focused on what matters to people, getting the cost of living under control. Another thing, 10p off, 10p extra on business mileage. Business mileage been held at 45p a mile for, I think, about 10 years. Also money for the ceramics industry, 120 million. But of course, there was a pottery company, I think from memory, was it Denby, that went into administration very recently. We know that the fuel duty cut has been extended. Every year we have a sort of pretense that it's going to go up, and yet it never does, because it hasn't gone up for, again, I think about 10 years. The Chancellor arguing that she's able to do this because growth is up and inflation down. Worth saying that the growth forecast, yes, highest in the G7 maybe, but it's only been revised up to 1%, and that is actually less than the original forecast for this year. But yeah, every little helps, I guess.
Every little helps. Now, of course, Catherine, the Chancellor has got some competition now, as we have a former Cabinet Minister out and about on the airwaves promoting an alternative economic strategy. Wes Streeting, who resigned as Health Secretary last week, of course, is now calling on the government to double capital gains tax. He's saying that this, quote-unquote, wealth tax would raise more than £10 billion. Some pressure on the Chancellor.
Yeah, quite extraordinary this, because Wes Streeting is very much seen as being sort of on the right of the Labour Party, and yet he's given an interview this morning saying that he thinks it would be a great idea to equalise the rates of capital gains tax with income tax, because he says it's not fair, basically, that people who go out and do a hard day's work pay less tax than people who have assets and then sell them on. Now, he reckons this could raise about £12 billion a year. But the trouble is, of course, that people that have assets, if they think they're going to pay 40% or 45% tax when they sell them, whether it be a house or something else, more likely just to hang onto them. So it's all very well thinking they could make 12 billion a year off this, but could they really? I was at an event with the Housing Secretary, Steve Reed. He's talking about local communities, giving back power to people in local communities and giving them a pride in their local environments. He was asked about this. He basically said he wasn't across it, but I think what looks like happening is this is a Labour government that promised not to put taxes up beyond sort of VAT on private school fees and non-doms, came in, had two massive tax rising budgets of about 70 billion between them, and it looks likely that there may be more coming down the line.
I mean, this intervention from Wes, I mean, it is just simplistic socialist thinking, really. Right. That's what I have to say. Catherine, very much. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I mean, you already pay tax on your income, then you choose to invest in something, you have to get taxed again as you go along, then taxed again when you sell it. Is there anything that the Labour Party can come up with that isn't more tax or freebies?
Yeah, I mean, one of the concerns that I think a lot of people have about a leadership contest is just as when the Conservatives had a leadership contest in 2022 and you had Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak sort of out-competing each other on tax cuts and sort of right-wing policy, you might have exactly the mirror image happening now in 2026, if there is a contest for the Labour leadership, which looks overwhelmingly likely, that all these different candidates, no matter what they actually believe, will be out-competing each other to deliver further and further left-wing policy to try and win over the Labour Party membership.
Cheeks of the same something.
Is that a George Galloway quote that you were reaching for there?
I thought it might be a bit rude for daytime television, so there you go.
I think they,
but Cameron's got in touch. He says, so ride a roller coaster on reduced VAT, but fully tax a child's education.
Yeah, and this is curious because Britain is now, I think, the only country in this part of the world that does tax education.
Unserious.
VAT was applied to independent schools. But ultimately, I think there's a wider question to be had here about the strategy of this government, because they were elected in 2024 promising a very, very small number of limited and specific tax rises on, basically, for the average voter, people that won't not you. The message from Labour was, OK, we're going to raise some taxes, but not on you. And then what happened? Not just once, but twice. We had two of the largest tax-raising budgets across the board in modern British political history. And these were taxes on ordinary working people. These were taxes raising national insurance, increasing the cost of employing, particularly people on low incomes, because the threshold was reduced as well as the rates increased.
Absolutely. One could say that there have been some lies told by our politicians. Who would have thought, eh? Who would have thought? We are going to get to the Great British Giveaway, though, because we're all in need of a bit of cash, so maybe it'll be you. £76,543.21. Here's how to enter.
We're counting down to a spectacular summer. It's your chance to win £76,543.21 in totally tax-free cash. A lump sum that you could have in time to splash out with this summer. Imagine all the things you could do with that cash. Give the garden a glow up, max out on a new motor, or just make sure the coming year is your year. And because it's tax-free, you get to keep every single penny for a chance to win £76,543.21 in tax-free cash. Text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come.
Oh, it's far too hot to work, isn't it, Tom?
Just get some air conditioning.
Labour's considering making it illegal to work when it's a bit hot as part of the drive for net zero, but after the break...
Violent ex-soldiers from countries such as Iraq or Afghanistan have been spotted along Belgian coastline after locations used for small boats crossings were those same locations that those individuals have been spotted. That's according to the police.
Yeah, so the potentially violent ex-soldiers coming here, really. But that's as the illegal migration crisis worsens. But net migration is down. We'll dig into the detail.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 22 minutes past 1. Now, net migration to Britain has fallen to its lowest level since the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, when we had all those travel restrictions. New ONS figures show an estimated 171,000 people were added to the population in the 12 months to December, down 48% on the previous year.
Well, the drop comes as the number of asylum seekers temporarily housed in hotels also continues to fall, but that is misleading.
It is.
Because whilst the number in hotels has fallen, the number in Home Office supplied accommodation has risen. It's gone up from 129,980 last year to 136,136 this year.
And you know what my concern is, or one of my many concerns is who's leaving the country? A lot of people are emigrating, and I worry that those are young, aspirational British people who should be here in Britain. But let's speak to Home Security Editor Mark White, who joins us now. Mark, the government are very pleased with these figures because the figures are down, and they were very, very high indeed under the Conservatives towards the end. Can you tell us a little more detail?
Yeah, listen, on the face of it, of course, net migration is down. That has got to be welcomed. It's still not at the levels of the tens of thousands it was promised when David Cameron was Prime Minister, but it's half the net migration level a year previously. But when you drill down in the figures, there are some worrying trends there. So 813,000 people are estimated to have arrived in the UK in 2025, while 642,000 are likely to have left. That's where they get the 171,000 net migration figure. But the figure suggests that more British nationals left the country during that 12-month period than arrived. So 246,000 British nationals left the UK over those 12 months, and just 110,000 returned. So 136,000 more British nationals left the UK, not to return as yet. And that is, of course, concerning. And it's not just British nationals, but EU plus nationals, so the 27 members plus Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein and Switzerland, with a higher number leaving the UK, 118,000 this time, with just 76,000 coming into the country. And that means, if you contrast that with outside of the European Union, there are still very significant numbers coming. 627,000 more came than left, which was 278,000. So some worrying trends there, hidden amongst what is still welcome news in terms of overall net migration going down.
I think a lot of people are worried that essentially what we've got is lots of people coming into this country who don't earn very much money and who may well end up taking more from the taxpayer than they put in, and lots of people with the potential to earn huge amounts of money and pay a lot in tax leaving. Do we have that detail, though? Because that's how it feels.
Well, we don't have details in terms of the metrics on the economic benefits of these individuals who are coming into the country, not as yet anyway. Maybe that's something that they can do over the longer term. It's interesting, though. government source has told me where you might think that Shabana Mahmood would be taking credit for where we are. It's actually Yvette Cooper. So this statement that I'll read to you says basically that, where are we? I just need to go down to this. Yeah, so basically it says, today's net migration figures demonstrate the quiet success Yvette Cooper's legacy in the Home Office had. On entering into government, Cooper rejected calls to liberalise measures brought in under the Conservatives. So, in other words, to scrap those measures, including the restrictions on student dependence. And then it goes on and also mentions one or two other great things that Yvette Cooper has done. Is she pitching for the leadership, do you think?
Yeah, how interesting is that? Now, there's a lot going on the Belgian coastline that's extremely worrying. Mark, what have you found out?
Listen, this is deeply concerning. We've seen a very significant move that appears to be more than just a blip now up towards Belgium as launch points for increasing numbers of migrant boats. To compare, on an average year, launches from Belgium were measured in just 1 or 2. It just wasn't an issue. But now, just since the beginning of this year, remember, we're still in May, 33 boats have launched from Belgian beaches. Many, many hundreds of migrants launched from Belgian beaches. And one of the most sinister, I think, developments that are being recorded now by the Belgian police and have been reported to their parliament is the fact that they have seen and noted individuals who they describe as ex-military members, soldiers from Iraq and Afghanistan, who appear to have been brought in by people smugglers to provide a protection for the smuggling operations, to confront effectively the police in increasingly violent ways, to stop them intervening to stop the boats from launching on the beaches. Because remember, Belgium has adopted a much more robust process than even the French are doing now. You know, they've been in shallow water pushing boats back to shore, etc. So now it seems, according to the chief of police in this area of the lower western coastline in Belgium, they are saying that over a 10-mile stretch of beaches, these very sinister individuals are there. Some of them are armed. They are increasingly violent when local police try to intervene to either slash the boats or disperse the migrants from the beaches, from these pickup points. So that is of real concern going forward. And of course, is very possible, indeed likely, that some of those individuals are going to end up in the UK.
This is such a humiliation for European authorities.
I mean, it is just sort of remarkable that Britain used to rule the waves of the world, and now we struggle to rule the ripples of the English Channel. But Mark White, thanks indeed for joining us and bringing us that slightly concerning sting in the tail to the migration numbers there.
Yeah, slightly concerning. Mark White, thank you very much. I mean, it's terrifying, isn't it, if you give it a thought? Anyway, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up. Your single-sex guidance, it's out today. Yes, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, will ban trans women from female toilets. We'll get into that after your latest news headlines.
Very good afternoon. The headlines this lunchtime. The Chancellor has just announced a summer savings package. She says it will ease the cost of living squeeze caused by the Iran war. Among the measures, Rachel Reeves is cutting VAT on summer attractions from 20% to 5% during the school holidays. The temporary cut will apply to places like theme parks, zoos, museums and fairs. The government has released the first batch of files on Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's appointment as UK trade envoy. Ministers say they found no evidence that formal due diligence or security vetting was carried out when he was appointed in 2001. The Foreign Office has summoned Israel's most senior diplomat in the UK over a video showing Israeli Minister Ben-Gvir taunting detained activists. The UK says his conduct was inflammatory and violated basic standards of dignity. Several British nationals are understood to be among those involved. Net migration to the UK has fallen to 171,000. That is the lowest level since 2021. New figures show the total has almost halved in a year, driven mainly by fewer non-EU nationals arriving for work. Separate Home Office figures show the number of asylum seekers housed in hotels has also fallen to just under 21,000. And Ofcom is warning some major tech firms are still failing to protect children online. The regulator says TikTok and YouTube have not committed to significant changes to make children's personalised feeds any safer. Those are the latest headlines this lunchtime. More news at 2.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, thank you, Sam. Lots more coming up on today's programme.
Yes, it's been revealed that the late Queen was very keen for her son Andrew to take on a prominent role in the promotion of national interests. That's as a batch of documents relating to his appointment as trade envoy have been released by the government.
All of that and indeed more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hotter weather is on the way for this bank holiday weekend and it's starting to turn warmer and sunnier in the south today. Cloudier further north with still some rain to talk about during the next 48 hours. We've got low pressure sitting to the northwest of the UK, high pressure building in from the south. That is going to clear the skies across southern England and South Wales. It'll take some time. So some places not brightening up until early to mid-afternoon. The cloud remains for North Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and outbreaks of rain will move through parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still, it's going to be a warm afternoon for many, despite the cloud further north. It's not going to be chilly, and in the south, temperatures approaching the mid-20s. But we've got more persistent rain heading in for the end of the afternoon, heading into the evening for Northern Ireland into southwest Scotland. A few showers for many other parts of Scotland, a lot of cloud cover and a keen breeze as well, particularly towards the north and the west. Lighter winds further south and a beautiful end to the day across Wales, the Midlands, the south of England. Once the sunshine turns up this afternoon in these places, we might not see much cloud around for at least a week or so. Now, the clear skies extend into northern England, parts of southern Scotland overnight, but Northern Ireland, many parts of central and northern Scotland keep the cloud. We've got further outbreaks of rain, mostly confined by the end of the night to the north of Scotland. A mild, if not warm night in places, mid-teens in the south. And then we start off with a lot of sunshine across many parts of England and East Wales. Still some cloud across western fringes and some low cloud at that, so murky around coasts. Outbreaks of rain continue to affect the north and northwest of Scotland, but for much of the rest of the UK it's drier and it's significantly warmer, 28 or 29 in the southeast.
Thank you, Britain, for all of you who listen to GB News Radio.
Whether you're at home or on the go, you're making us Britain's news channel and Britain's radio station.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M180 westbound in North Lincolnshire, a collision has closed one lane, expected to clear between 2 and 2:15 this afternoon. The M42 northbound in Solihull also has a lane closure due to a vehicle fire, resuming normal flow between 2 and 2:15. In Hampshire, the A34 northbound has one lane closed for a broken down vehicle, with clearance likely around 2:30. All lanes are blocked on the A47 eastbound in Norfolk due to a collision. And on the trains, Southern and Thameslink report no services between Three Bridges and Horsham, with further disruption around Gillingham in Kent. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 35 minutes past 1, and you've been getting in touch throughout the programme, telling us actually what we should be talking about. RB has got in touch to say GB News has got to stop flagging net migration, which is a disguise for the numbers entering the country. Total immigration figures, he says, or she says, are the real deal. Those leaving GB, like British citizens seeking a better life abroad, cannot be used to offset those who are coming in.
Well, exactly. And I think what people care about is who's coming in and who's going out. Are people going to be naturally cohesive in this country, for one, culturally? Are they going to benefit the country in terms of finance? That might be nice. Who are we getting and who is sadly leaving?
So I've got a bit of a breakdown here of these numbers. I've broken it down into 3. So that is non-EU net migration, EU net migration and British nationals net migration. Now, interestingly, non-EU net migration, so that is non-EU citizens coming in minus those non-EU people who are leaving, and there are substantial numbers of non-EU people leaving the country.
There are, yes.
Net migration for non-EU is 347,000.
Yes.
EU net migration is negative. So more people from Europe left Britain than came in, minus 42,000. But then you get the kicker. British nationals net migration. The number of Brits leaving versus coming back, minus 136,000.
Yeah.
That's 136,000 Brits leaving.
And how many of those people are young people who want to start a business, but they don't feel like they can do it here because of the various costs and the regulation and the current economic environment? How many people are those who could potentially employ huge numbers of people or indeed pay lots of tax? That's what the government wants, isn't it? I worry that we're squeezing and squeezing and squeezing taxpayers in this country so much, and then people who would actually pay a lot of tax are leaving.
Although, of course, a significant proportion of these will also be retirees going to retire somewhere sunnier.
That's true, but some of them come back when they're older to use the NHS.
Now, on a different topic, Mel, who's actually the name that I've been given here is Mel, born and bred in the northeast. Bit of regional pride there. So
Excellent.
Hello, Mel. Says, forget Andrew's appointment. Why is the government holding back documents about Mandelson's appointment? And this is a really interesting thing because, of course, we had the first tranche. Everyone uses the word tranche when we're talking about these things. We had the first tranche of Mandelson documents about 2 months ago, and we're still waiting for the next one, which could be next month. And I hear that it's going to be the most enormous. The reason for the delay is it is just so many documents. I mean, it's going
but it's
to be
also how much is going to be redacted.
Yes, that's true.
For national security reasons.
But I mean, I think we're going to be talking about it for weeks, just because the first day it comes out, there is no way we're going to find all of the stories buried within all of these documents. This is going to drag on for many, many days.
Well, I am far more interested personally in those files than I am in whether the late Queen was pushing for this job for her son. But there you go, let us know your thoughts. We're going to be talking about that next because we're going to be speaking to Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent, who I believe is still in Northern Ireland. Cameron, tell us, what's actually been said then in these files? Have we found out something new about the appointment of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor?
Well, a little bit, Emily, to be perfectly honest. So let's just bring viewers and listeners up to date to exactly what's happened. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, the King's brother, was made UK trade envoy back in 2001, and he spent around 10 years in that role, flying around the world, getting the nickname Air Miles Andy and Playboy Prince as well. And then in 2011, he was forced to step down over his friendship with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Fast forward to the beginning of this year, around February time, the Epstein files were released by the US Department of Justice. Now, a couple of weeks after that, Andrew was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office, and he was released under investigation. No charges have been brought, and he has always denied all the allegations against him. However, this morning we have had a release of some government files relating to that appointment way back in 2001 or 2000, just before the appointment, from the government and from the government archive. So it shows that the late Queen Elizabeth II II, i.e. Andrew's mother, strongly supported the then Prince Andrew taking a major role in promoting UK trade and business interests abroad. A memo from the former British Trade International Chief, Sir David Wright, said the Queen was very keen for Andrew to succeed Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, who was the former trade envoy, to be promoted to that role. Of course, Andrew's Royal Naval career was coming to an end at the time, and essentially they were trying to find a job for him. And the idea was that Andrew would make regional UK visits, carry out 2 or 3 overseas trips every year, and occasionally lead trade missions. But it was suggested that it should be avoided that Andrew is sitting in on board meetings, for example. The documents also reveal that there were internal concerns, what's been described as internal concerns, about managing Andrew's public image during that role. Staff, for example, were instructed not to arrange golf-related events for Andrew overseas because golfing was considered, and I quote, a private activity. Officials warned his high public profile, of course, would require strict media management for overseas engagements. I've already mentioned the nicknames he has, such as Air Miles Andy, during those engagements. And also that Andrew preferred, and I quote, more sophisticated countries to visit. I'm not entirely sure what is meant by that, but perhaps our viewers and listeners can read between the lines on that one. It also mentioned Andrew's interests, including high-tech industries, trade and businesses, youth projects and schools, cultural events, especially ballet, Commonwealth affairs and military and foreign affairs. So there's nothing that's kind of a bombshell revelation, I would suggest, Tom and Emily. Of course, the whole point of the Liberal Democrats basically asking and forcing this motion through the House of Commons to try and get the government to reveal this information is trying to work out or reveal who knew what and when, particularly when it comes to Peter Mandelson, another friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and at the time a very prominent figure in the then Blair government, the former Labour governments back in 2000-2001, and his role in appointing the then Prince Andrew to the UK trade envoy position. Now, you know, the trade envoy position is a hugely public role, and you are representing the UK overseas. And of course, with the links to Jeffrey Epstein, it clearly didn't end very well, Tom and Emily.
I suppose not, no, to put it mildly. But Cameron, I can't help thinking there's been a lot of focus on the Queen here, the late Queen, deciding that once then Prince Andrew's military service was up, he would do rather well in this trade envoy role. I can't help but thinking that wasn't a bad appointment at the time. People couldn't have known what would have happened years later at that point. Do you think there's been a bit too much sort of negative coverage about the Queen there? Because ultimately, that initial appointment, at the time when Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was a very popular household name, a war hero, I mean, it seemed like perhaps a sensible appointment at the time.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, I see a situation where, remember, the Queen is the monarch, Queen Elizabeth II. A, didn't particularly like controversy, and B, she is a constitutional monarch, which is probably the more important point here. She would have just essentially signed off on the advice she was given by whoever, whether that's government advice, whether that's royal household official advice, or elsewhere. So I can see a situation where the memo which says the Queen supports the idea of her son being given this trade envoy role wouldn't have been the Queen, the late Queen we're talking about here, Queen Elizabeth, demanding that her son is put into this position, but she was just agreeing with the advice that she was given. That's the kind of hunch I'm getting from this particular memo. When it comes to was this a good appointment or not at the time, before we knew Andrew's links to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, well, you know, the answer is I think there was a different image from speaking to many people who knew Andrew Mountbatten Windsor at the time, between the public Andrew at the time, the lovable war hero, and what he was like in private behind the scenes. And there was a difference there, and it's just now the public know the then private Andrew back in 2001.
Yes, thank you very much, Cameron, for going through all that for us. Cameron Walker there, GB News Royal Correspondent in Northern Ireland.
Absolutely, where the King and Queen have been for the last couple of days, I think, yeah. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more to come.
Yes, I think they're there for 3 or 4 days, actually, Tom. Yeah, very nice. Too hot to work, is it? Labour is considering making it illegal to work when it's too hot as part of the drive for net zero.
Well, if you're in search of some holiday sunshine, speaking about all of that heat, well, here's the weather in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're heading away for this bank holiday weekend, well, there's plenty of sunshine across western areas of Europe. In the east, though, there are some thunderstorms as well as hail. But for the Canary Islands, plenty of sunshine, temperatures in the 20s. Similar story for Portugal, Spain, southern France, as well as Italy. But as we head further east towards Greece and Turkey, that's where there's the risk of thunderstorms. There's hail in the mix with these showers as well. But it does look a bit drier into next week. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
11 World War II veterans here for the celebrations today, and one of them is Paul Terry, who served here in the Netherlands. In fact, Paul, this is what you looked like when you served here, and you served alongside your twin brother, whose medals you're wearing now. Paul, what do you remember about serving here in the Netherlands? Because the operation didn't quite go to plan, did it?
No, it didn't quite go to plan, and we were more or less ambushed, I suppose you call it, because, as I said, we were told that we were going to just walk into Ireland and liberate them and take it, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. I don't know where the cock happened, but when we arrived there, there were also the German Panzer Division, which is a tank division, and there the trouble started, and it was rather nasty from there on. We were halted where we should, because we were land troops, and the parachute, we were told the parachutes had landed, and they unfortunately copped it very badly.
So how does it feel then to be back here for the celebrations today?
Well, it's great, really. It really is great there. You see the smiles on the faces, and the Dutch people are so nice. It's unbelievable what they went through, and we honour them very much, and we do appreciate what they do for us when we do come over here, because they treat us like royalty. And there we are. I'm very happy to be back for the second time, but when I should get back for the third, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It's in God's hands.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain,
with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's coming up to 10 to 2. Now, the government is considering introducing a maximum working temperature, which would make it illegal to work during a heatwave.
Yes, Emma Reynolds, the Environment Secretary, has said she's going to carefully consider the Climate Change Committee's recommendations.
Well, joining us now is a man who has worked in very high heat outdoors many, many times, Mr. Pothole, campaigner Mark Morrell. Mr. Pothole, thanks indeed for joining us. First of all, shouldn't you just tell us your experience of working in high heat?
Yeah, I mean, I was in the gas industry working in central London, so I've worked on gas emergencies where we've had to dig the road up, get in a hole with full PPE and gloves and a breathing apparatus to work on a gas leak. You can't say it's too hot, I'm going to let it blow up, can you?
Well, quite. So are you against this type of proposal? Do you think even if it's 38 degrees, if the gas engineering needs to be done, it just needs to be done? Get on with it.
You got to. I mean, and roadworks, you know, because I advocate roadworks. If we finally get some money from government to resurface our roads properly, if the weather temperature is 27 degrees, next to the machine laying the actual tarmac, the guys will be operating in 35 to 40 degrees temperature. But even worse than that, Emily, if it's too hot in central London, how are you going to get an ice cream from an ice cream vendor?
I suppose one of the arguments against this is the Climate Change Committee is a very respected committee set up, of course, by the Climate Change Act, Ed Miliband, in 2008, and it's had its noose around government ever since. But they say that actually the temperature is getting more and more hot. So whilst in the past we might have been able to survive working outdoors or even down in gas mains, 10 or 20 years ago, in 10 or 20 years hence, those temperatures will be higher. What do you say to that?
But other countries work in higher temperatures, and I think I read the article when they talk about Spain, but they obviously have got a different way of working to a certain extent. But you get a bit fed up with the lobby about climate change. Yes, climate's changed. It's changed for thousands of years, and we have to adapt and evolve. But nanny state imposing temperatures on things, I think, is a step far too wide. And we've got a problem with people working now. That suddenly the slightest excuse is the temperature is this in the direct sunlight, so I'm not working anymore. I think we've got a real problem in terms of that. Put some sunblock on, get some breeze, put some shade on it, and get on with the job.
Also, let's be honest, it's not hot very often, is it, in this country? We've been waiting for some sunny weather. It's finally arriving this weekend. It'll probably get up to about 31 degrees maximum on Monday. Yes, it's going to be a bit stifling if you're working out and about under the sun, but it's not for long till it starts raining again, is it, Mark?
No, not at all. And some years ago, I bought a really nice big swimming pool for my children, expecting climate change and increasing temperatures. And we were sorely let down. I had to buy a heater.
Oh, no.
Oh.
That must have set you back quite a bit.
Well, at least it will be faster to fill with all the rain.
It was holiday abroad or a heater for the pool, and the kids had more chance of it heating in the pool than 2 weeks in Spain. But there's got to be some sense there. I despair at what's coming out of government, and particularly Ed. I just don't know where his head is.
Yeah. Well, Mark Morell, Mr. Pothole himself, thanks indeed for joining us and talking through this. Goodness me, if this rule comes in, I mean, HS2 is supposed to take another 14 years to finish. I mean, probably take another lifetime to finish if we stopped working on the railways as soon as it gets a little bit hot.
Well, we won't be working this weekend. No. Although it is a bank holiday on Monday, isn't it?
Not for us.
No, not for us. It's always a bank holiday with you, Tom.
It's like, I'd never get a blooming bank holiday. I'm always in this studio.
But this is the sort of common sense attitude, isn't it? That is... What did you say?
I said bloomin'.
Oh, bloomin'. Oh, that's all right. That's allowed. Bloomin'.
As many flowers shall bloom.
Anyway, Mr. Pothole has a common sense attitude. Government and various quangos do not. Anyway, it's the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hotter weather is on the way for this bank holiday weekend and it's starting to turn warmer and sunnier in the south today. Cloudier further north with still some rain to talk about during the next 48 hours. We've got low pressure sitting to the northwest of the UK, high pressure building in from the south. That is going to clear the skies across southern England and South Wales. It'll take some time, so some places not brightening up until early to mid-afternoon. The cloud remains for North Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and outbreaks of rain will move through parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still, it's going to be a warm afternoon for many, despite the cloud further north. It's not going to be chilly, and in the south, temperatures approaching the mid-20s. But we've got more persistent rain heading in for the end of the afternoon, heading into the evening for Northern Ireland into southwest Scotland. A few showers for many other parts of Scotland, a lot of cloud cover, and a keen breeze as well, particularly towards the north and the west. Lighter winds further south and a beautiful end to the day across Wales, the Midlands, the south of England. Once the sunshine turns up this afternoon in these places, we might not see much cloud around for at least a week or so. Now, the clear skies extend into northern England, parts of southern Scotland overnight, but Northern Ireland, many parts of central and northern Scotland keep the cloud, and we've got further outbreaks of rain, mostly confined by the end of the night to the north of Scotland. A mild, if not warm night in places, mid-teens in the south. And then we start off with a lot of sunshine across many parts of England and East Wales. Still some cloud across western fringes and some low cloud at that, so murky around coasts. Outbreaks of rain continue to affect the north and northwest of Scotland, but for much of the rest of the UK it's drier and it's significantly warmer, 28 or 29 in the southeast.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's a totally tax-free £76,543.21 in cash to be won. Cash to spend on anything you like. That's like having over £6,000 extra to spend each month for a whole year. You could spend it on a bucket list holiday, treats for all of the family, or just save it for a rainy day. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow.
Stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, Parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition, from 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Thursday, the 21st of May. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
This government has the right economic plan. We promised to grow the economy, and we have. We promised to cut inflation, and we have. And we promised to cut the cost of living, and we are.
Yes, that's the Chancellor Rachel Reeves unveiling her new cost of living plan aimed at easing the impact of the Iran conflict. Measures include free bus travel for children across England during August. The Tories say the announcement will bring little comfort to struggling families.
Once again, we have a weak government caving into the inevitable after spending months defending a truly terrible decision.
And the Andrew files have been revealed. It's been revealed, as I said, that the late Queen was very keen for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to take on a prominent role in the promotion of national interests, as a batch of documents relating to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's appointment as trade envoy in 2001 has been released by the government.
Yes, a lot of words there.
Lots of words.
Violent ex-soldiers from countries such as Iraq or Afghanistan have been spotted along the Belgian coast at locations used for small boat crossings. That's what the police have said.
And as the illegal migration crisis worsens, new statistics show net migration is actually at its lowest level since 2021, nearly 50% down on last year. But are the figures as positive as they seem? After all, the number in Home Office accommodation of asylum seekers, that's been rising. We'll crunch the numbers with Mark White.
There are indications of a worrying new trend in the terms of the number of Brits leaving the country as opposed to those coming back to the UK. 136,000 more Britons left the United Kingdom than came back in the previous 12 months.
And yes, Britain's regulator is demanding tougher action from TikTok and YouTube to protect children online.
And single-sex guidance. Today, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson will ban transgender women in female toilets. We'll have that debate.
And déjà vu. Yes, scientists have discovered that cows can actually recognise the faces of people they know, and they can also match voices they recognise to the right faces.
Why do cows always know when it's going to rain?
Oh, sorry, I don't know the answer to that one.
Oh.
You usually answer your own questions, stop.
You
caught me out there.
They always see. I don't know. Can they detect a change in the air pressure? They always seem to lie down whenever it's raining or about to rain.
It's pretty cool that they can recognise you, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I sometimes mix up faces with names.
Oh, I always do. But cows, like
probably because you're not paying attention.
Never forget.
It took him months to remember my name.
No, that's all right, Eleanor. I know your name.
My name is Emily, for those wondering. Yes, still is.
Right, OK.
Still is today. But yes, can the Labour government, in other news, can the Labour government take credit for these falling migration figures? Because the Conservatives have come out strong saying these are the measures that we took that led to the numbers falling. James Cleverly saying, I made these changes to things like social care work visas, dependents numbers, what else, students, etc., etc. And are Labour now just reaping the rewards that they can say, look, migration's down?
Well, two things can be true at the same time. Yes, the changes that did deliver this massive cut in migration were introduced by the Conservative government in their final 2 years in office. But at the same time, when Labour got in, they didn't reverse any of those changes. They stuck with that policy to reduce migration.
But they opposed it all at the time, didn't they?
They did.
Things change.
But I think it is fair to say that Yvette Cooper, as Home Secretary as she was, could have undone a lot of that stuff that the Conservatives did in their final year or two and chose not to. And, in fact, it is also true to say that Shabana Mahmood's proposed reforms, and they might be watered down, there might be rebellions, God knows we know that the Labour Party likes to rebel these days, but if they do go through unamended, the changes, that is, to indefinite leave to remain, that is expected to push down migration even further, to the point that it could, this time next year, get close to net zero, even negative migration, net migration.
Yeah, I just hope we're not left with the useless people. Anyway, that's a bit harsh to say about a human, but it's true. Anyway, GBNews.com...
Some people are more productive than others.
Some people are more productive than others. Some people are more, better for Britain, in my opinion. Anyway, GBNews.com/your say is the way to get in touch with us. It is your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. 5 minutes past 2. The top story this afternoon. Rachel Reeves is cutting VAT on family days out this summer as the government tries to ease pressure from rising prices linked to the Middle East conflict. The Chancellor says VAT on summer attractions will drop from 20% rather, to 5% between the 25th of June and the 1st of September. That will cover fairs, theme parks, zoos and museums, as well as children's tickets for cinemas and concerts, soft play and theatre. Children's meals in restaurants and cafes will also be included. And in a wider package, children in England will be able to travel on buses for free throughout August. The government is also cutting tariffs on some food imports and increasing tax-free mileage rates. Well, announcing those measures in the Commons earlier, Rachel Reeves said the Great British Savings Plan is about helping families through the summer as the war in the Middle East continues to feed through into prices here at home.
The conflict in the Middle East poses a significant challenge to the world's economy, including our own. I have not shied away from my criticism of the war. I believe it to have been a mistake. Nor have I ignored the costs that it will bring to bear on the British people. I have been clear-eyed about my duty to do what I can to support families and businesses, to be responsive to a changing world and responsible in the national interest.
But the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says the government's been forced into a U-turn.
It is astonishing to hear the Chancellor claiming that the government can afford to help households because the forecasts have improved. Is the Chancellor seriously suggesting that the economic outlook is now better than at the time of the last fiscal forecasts, when we have had the Iran conflict, to which our economy is highly exposed thanks to this government's ruinous choices?
Newly released government files show the late Queen was very keen for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to take a prominent role promoting British interests. In a memo from 2000, Queen Elizabeth reportedly wanted him to become involved in trade promotion. That was before he was appointed UK Trade Envoy the following year. The government says it's found no evidence that formal due diligence or security vetting was carried out at the time. The Liberal Democrats say the small paper trail is deeply concerning and they're calling for mandatory vetting for similar appointments in future. 11 NHS staff have been sacked for inappropriately accessing the medical records of the victims of the Nottingham attacks. Nottingham University Hospital says the dismissals follow an internal investigation into staff viewing records without a legitimate reason. Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates were stabbed to death by Valdo Calocane in 2023. The Trust says 12 other staff have also received final written warnings. 2 have also received written warnings for the first time. It's informed Nottinghamshire Police and the Information Commissioner's Office, with further investigations still ongoing, including into records of surviving victims. And net migration has fallen in the UK to 171,000. That is the lowest level since 2021. New figures show the total has almost halved in a year, driven mainly by fewer non-EU nationals arriving for work. Sir Keir Starmer says it shows his government is delivering on its final promise to restore control on Britain's borders. In a post online, the Prime Minister said there is more to do and promised a skills-based migration system that he says rewards contribution and reduces reliance on cheap labour from overseas. Separate Home Office figures, meanwhile, show asylum claims have fallen by 12%. That's in the year to March, while the number of asylum seekers in hotels is down a third. Those are the 2 o'clock headlines. More news in half an hour.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's coming up to 10 minutes past 2. Now, net migration in Britain has fallen to its lowest levels since the COVID pandemic.
Yes, new ONS figures show an estimated 171,000 people were added to the population in the 12 months to December. That's down 48% on the previous year.
Well, the drop comes as the number of asylum seekers temporarily housed in hotels has fallen. Meanwhile, the overall number of asylum seekers in Home Office accommodation, that has gone up.
Yes, there's a lot of spin going on with these figures, isn't there? Let's speak to Mark White, our Home and Security Editor, who can talk to us straight about all this. What do these figures show? Should the government be very happy indeed about them?
Well, certainly they will be, I think, pleased that net migration is falling. That was of great concern to people, so down to 171,000. It's 48% down, so virtually halved. But when you delve down into the figures, that gives a bit more cause for concern, because it seems to point to a bit of a brain drain of British nationals, particularly younger individuals who have left and, as so far at least, don't appear to have come back. So in the last 12 months, for instance, 136,000 more British nationals left the United Kingdom than came back into the country, and 75,000 of that number were aged between 16 and 34, so swayed towards younger people who are, it seems, getting out of the country. What their long-term aspirations are, we don't really know, because that kind of detail isn't really there. And it's the same with EU nationals that are showing that more EU nationals have left the UK, 110,000 to 70-odd thousand who've come back to the UK as well. So all that, of course, is bringing net migration down and showing that still the highest level of that net migration into the UK is made up of these countries outside of the outside of Europe, I should say.
Mark White, we'll speak to you a little bit later, hopefully. But for now, we're joined by the journalist, David Shipley. David, the government is saying, look at us, we've got immigration down far below what the Conservatives, where the Conservatives had it. I believe it reached 1 million, did it not?
Yeah,
in 1 year. So is this an improvement in your eyes?
I think it's obviously good if we are getting migration down, but these statistics are pretty misleading and they're definitely being spun, as you were saying. So Mark was just going through the stats there. I think it's important to recognise that not all groups of people are the same. You know, Denmark, for example, captures very good data on the relative criminality and economic activity of migrants from different parts of the world. And essentially, Anglos and Western Europeans are generally low criminality, high economic productivity, and people from Southeast Asia, you know, the Indian subcontinent, sub-Saharan Africa are less economically productive and more likely to be criminal. And what we are running at the moment is a migration model in which we are replacing low criminality, high economic output people with the opposite. So
is that fair to look at a sort of broad region-wide view? I was looking at some of these statistics earlier, and I was actually quite taken aback how countries that are literally next door to one another can be massively different in terms of crime statistics, in terms of the number of people in social housing, the number of people in work. For example, the average Indian in Britain actually earns more than the average Brit, and they are much less likely to be in social housing. But then you look at Pakistan, and they are much more likely to be in social housing, much more likely to be dependent on the state, and have different criminal profile as well. So even though it's sort of the same region, these two countries have massive, massive differences in terms of how their people are interacting with the state services.
This is absolutely the case, and you know there are huge differences across different populations across the world in terms because of different cultural backgrounds, different groups of population, different peoples. But if you sort of look at what we're actually doing, we say last year, for example, I think we had something like 250,000 British nationals left forever, 118,000 EU nationals left forever, and we brought in something like 627,000 from non-EU countries, which includes a lot of Pakistanis, a lot of Nigerians, for example, which are populations which don't tend to be particularly economically productive. So we are not running a sensible migration strategy here, and effectively we are replacing high quality productive people with lower quality, less productive people. That is not going to help the economy. It's not going to help productivity. It's also not going to help the crime stats. And I think all of that is also contributing to the general feeling of, where people feel less coherent as a society if they live amongst people with different faiths, belief systems, from different parts of the world, often different languages. And I think it is a real problem, which the government is sort of convincing itself is going to be fine just because they've got this net migration stat down.
Yeah, I think so too. We should be a lot more picky, David. Thank you very much indeed for your time. We'll have to leave it there. David Shipley, journalist and commentator.
Now, newly released files reveal that the late Queen was very keen for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor to take on a major trade role representing Britain abroad.
Yes, a memo sent to the then Foreign Secretary Robin Kirk said the monarch wanted her son to play a prominent role in the promotion of national interests before he was later appointed Special Trade Envoy.
Well, our political aid editor, Christopher Hope, can join us now. Christopher, what did we learn in this sort of data dump?
Well, a limited amount. We're seeing more information released in coming weeks, we're told by the government. But this goes back to 2001, when the government, the Blair government, made Prince Andrew, as he then was, the UK trade ambassador. And it lifts the lid on how that happened. It was very clear it was the late Queen Elizabeth II was keen. She wanted him to have a prominent role in the promotion of national interests. Andrew, of course, being the Queen's second son. His time in the Navy was coming to an end back in 2001, and they wanted to get him a new role. So Sir David Wright, who ran the leading export body, UK Trade International at the time, he had a wide-ranging chat, these documents reveal, with the late Queen, looking for a suitable role for him. It was sold to the Queen as it's not really a board position. There's no board papers, no board meetings required to go to, no salary, and it'd be envisioned originally to be quite a limited role, but of course Prince Andrew became criticised at the time for being called Air Miles Andy, or the Junket of York, for going on loads of trips around the world, putting travel costs on expenses and the like. That's how it came out, but it seemed to be a role to give him a role looking at trade, youth, cultural events, ballet, but not theatre by all accounts. So that was the idea. But the crucial point here about Andrew and why this matters so much now is there's no due diligence took place before this happened. Now the government will see Chris Bryant shortly, the government minister, defending all this. He'll be saying to MPs that given it was a continual role run by the royal family, because the Duke of Kent had it before Andrew, then the involvement in trade and investment promotion, it wasn't required to do any kind of degree of checking the background of Andrew. And if only that had happened, of course, the friendship which already was in place with Jeffrey Epstein may have emerged, and concerns about Epstein and maybe even Ghislaine Maxwell may have emerged too. None of that happened. And why this matters is because the Duke was arrested in February on looking at whether he was involved in any kind of misconduct in public office. Now, he vehemently denies any claims. But what I think what this will mean is, did the Duke actually have any public office in any real sense? He wasn't vetted. It wasn't a board role. It wasn't paid. Was he actually in a public office? So I think that'll become part of the conversation for lawyers to have in coming weeks. Do these documents show that, in fact, the Duke wasn't actually in any kind of public office at all? Therefore, there's an investigation to him and his role in that period until 2010, when he resigned, of course, when there were photographs of him with Virginia Giuffre first emerged in the Mail on Sunday. They may find out, or the lawyers may argue, that actually he wasn't in a formal role, therefore any attempt at investigating him over this centuries-old idea of a misconduct in public office may not stand. So I think that's part of why this matters so much.
Doesn't that begin to stretch the bounds of credulity? I mean, we've literally just seen documents where Her late Majesty the Queen was suggesting that he be appointed to this role, documents that were going back and forth between the palace and the government. The words trade envoy were used there in black and white. And, of course, he had to resign from that role a decade later. I mean, if it walks like a duck, sort of quacks like a duck, swims like a duck, maybe it is a trade envoy.
But maybe legally it isn't a duck, and that's the point, you see, Tom. It wasn't a paid role. He wasn't checked out for it. It wasn't a board position. There were no board papers. What, in fact, was the job which the Duke was doing, and does that qualify as a public office in law? I'm sure that is part of the conversation lawyers will be having over this, and this is why it matters so much, because the victims of Virginia Roberts, Virginia Giuffre, and they see in Prince Andrew somebody who was, of course, photographed with a hand round her waist. But of course, the Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor doesn't recall meeting Virginia Giuffre and denies all wrongdoing vehemently. They want to see anyone brought to justice with any connections here and have their place in court. And that's why this disclosure today falls into that kind of timeline about what it will lead down the track towards this investigation.
And Christopher, just to remind our viewers, we are looking at the House of Commons right now, live at the moment, because we are waiting for the Trade Minister to stand up. Will he be giving a short statement?
Yes, he will. That's David Mundell speaking now. He's a Scottish Conservative. Yes, he will be. He'll be grilling, saying, why on earth wasn't any vetting carried out in such a key role? Is that a mistake? Will it happen again? What lessons are going to be learned from this appointment? Should it have happened in the first place? Of course, the late Queen Elizabeth isn't around to answer any further questions and wouldn't anyway, and the palace has moved on. And in fact, the king, her elder son, of course, has said he wants the wheels of justice to take their course and so forth. And anyway, they'll be limited to what anyone can say outside of the chamber, because there is, of course, an legal investigation. And we fully expect the Speaker in the Commons to say something around those lines before MPs speak, to avoid prejudicing any further legal investigation by police and the like.
OK, well, Christopher Hope, thanks indeed for joining us. We're going to keep a close eye on that House of Commons because we are expecting that statement from the Trade Minister. But in the meantime, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Plenty more still to come.
Yes, we're going to have a debate because the single-sex guidance is out today. It will ban trans women from female toilets and from other public spaces. But after the break...
Yes, big tech targeted. Britain's regulator demands tougher action from TikTok and YouTube to protect children online. We'll also be keeping an eye on the House of Commons. We're expecting that statement and we'll go to it when it happens.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. 25 minutes past 2 is the time. Now, Ofcom is warning that some major tech firms are still failing to protect children online.
Yes, the regulator is saying that TikTok and YouTube in particular have not committed to significant changes to make children's personalised feeds safer.
Well, joining us now is the founder and director of Unplugged Coalition, Jennifer Powers. Jennifer, what specifically is Ofcom saying today?
Hello. Yes, well, this is a really significant intervention from Ofcom and a very timely publication of a report just before the government's consultation on restrictions on social media closes next week. And the report talks about 2 of the big 5 social media platforms not going further to protect children online, and particularly singling out TikTok and YouTube. Although I have to say, I think parents across the country would feel that, you know, there's not enough happening across all platforms rather than just these 2. But those were the 2 that were sounded out by the regulator.
Yeah, Jennifer, I mean, I have a little 8-month-old, and some of the statistics from this report are quite stark in terms of.
TikTok?
He's not on TikTok. Not that I know of. In terms of how young some of these children are that are seemingly using screens all the time. They're saying that the majority of under 2s already use screens, that 65% of parents with children aged 6 months to 2 years say that their child goes online. 85% of parents say they look at screens, which, I mean, you can't really avoid, but I don't know if there's a difference there between looking at a screen and using a screen. But it's pretty clear that this is, if you want to call it an epidemic, all children seem to be looking at these screens.
Yeah, absolutely. The statistics in the report are harrowing. And as someone who works on this issue sort of 7 days a week, sadly, I'm not surprised, because we know that what's needed is a huge culture change in this country with regard to children and addictive technology, children and their use of screens. And there's obviously a role for parents there in terms of understanding the huge negative impact that letting their babies, toddlers, and older children encounter from heavy screen use. But there's also a role, in my opinion, for the government and for the regulator, Ofcom in this instance, to really hold these big tech platforms to account. I mean, yes, of course, we want their innovation, we want their investment, we want the jobs, but that doesn't mean that we should give them a carte blanche to steal our children's childhoods and to have such a negative impact. And let's not forget, children, they don't have the agency that we have as adults. And so it's right, in my view, that we set guardrails and that we protect them. And I think what Ofcom is doing is saying, look, these voluntary measures that these tech platforms are making are not sufficient to safeguard children. And
I do agree with you, Jennifer. I do agree with you quite a bit with what you're saying, but clearly the problem is that parents don't care enough. If parents are allowing their toddlers and babies even and, primary school-age children to sit and watch the screens all the time, then, what can the regulators really do to stop that?
Oh my goodness, there's so much that all of us can do. I really don't think it's a binary decision here.
Okay.
I think, yes, absolutely. I go out and give talks to parents a couple times a week during term time. So I completely agree with you that it's about educating and engaging with parents in a really non-judgmental but hard-hitting way. But no, there's a fantastic amount that government can do. For instance, and this I appreciate, not, some of your viewers may say, oh, there's no role for the state. But I actually think with regard to children's welfare, there very much is. We don't send children down mines or up chimneys anymore. And we definitely can create a world here in Britain where babies and toddlers are not raised on TikTok and Snap. And so, yes, it's about parents understanding the damage. The government came out with guidance for parents only a few months ago saying that under 2, like your baby, should not have any screen time, and that from 2 to 5 that it should be done in a co-watching environment, i.e. you watch it with your toddler, with your preschooler, and then that's fine, but they shouldn't have unrestricted, unlimited access to the internet. And in terms of the regulator's role, well, listen, these are social media platforms that are incredibly resistant to taking under 13-year-olds off their platforms, despite the fact their terms and conditions say they're for 13 and older. And Ofcom does mention that in the report, and that, you know, more sanctions are needed. So I'm really hopeful that the government will take action on the back of this this Ofcom's report and on the pleas of millions of parents across the country.
OK, Jennifer Powers, thank you very much. Founder and director of Unplugged Coalition. Just a little insight into mum TikTok. So mum social media, sort of half of mums sort of shame for allowing your children to use screens, and the others are like, you got to do what you got to do. If you need to make your breakfast, just put them in front of a screen.
Just
you know, there's a real
your child in front of an iPad.
There's a real divide.
Oh.
You know, you're a snob if you don't allow your child to watch a screen, and then the other side, you're an idiot.
Sometimes it's OK to be a bit sloppy.
Yeah, there's a bit of a fight going on. Anyway, a spokesperson for TikTok said it's very disappointing that Ofcom has failed to acknowledge both our long-standing and newer safety features, from no direct messaging for under 16s, preset private teen accounts, to our recently enhanced age assurance technologies. We'll continue to make ongoing investments in safety measures for our users.
And a YouTube spokesman said the platform provides industry-leading, age-appropriate, high-quality experiences for young viewers, working with child safety experts to deliver protections that support millions of families across Britain. Adding that it is YouTube Kids and Kid and Teen accounts child and teen accounts, perhaps, on YouTube offer age-appropriate experiences with extra protections.
OK, well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up.
Yes, déjà moo. Scientists have discovered that cows can recognise the faces of people they know and can also match voices that they recognise to the right faces.
Clever cows.
Clever cows, all that and more to come after your latest headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. 2:30, the headlines this hour. The Chancellor has announced a summer savings package to ease the cost of living squeeze caused by the Iran war. Among the measures, Rachel Reeves is cutting VAT on summer attractions from 20% to 5% during the school holidays. The temporary cut will apply to places like theme parks, zoos, museums and fairs. The government has released the first batch of files on Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's appointment as trade envoy. Ministers say they found no evidence that formal due diligence or security vetting was carried out when he was appointed in 2001. The Foreign Office has summoned Israel's most senior diplomat in the UK over a video showing Israeli Minister Ben-Gvir taunting detained activists. The UK says his conduct was inflammatory and violated basic standards of dignity. Several British nationals are understood to be among those involved, and ministers are demanding an explanation from Israeli authorities. Net migration to the UK has fallen to 171,000. That is the lowest level since 2021. New figures show the total has almost halved in just a year, driven mainly by fewer non-EU nationals arriving for work. That comes as separate Home Office figures also show the number of asylum seekers housed in hotels has fallen to just under 21,000. And Ofcom is warning some major tech firms are still failing to protect children online. The regulator says TikTok and YouTube have not committed to significant changes to make children's personalised feeds any safer. Those are the latest headlines for now. A full roundup with Tatiana Sanchez at 3.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain, and thanks, Sam. It's 33 minutes past 2.
It is, and single-sex guidance is out today. I think it's taken about 13 months for this to happen since that Supreme Court ruling. Yes, the Education Secretary is going to ban trans women from female toilets. Is that the right move?
Well, all of that and more to come. You with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hotter weather is on the way for this bank holiday weekend, and it's starting to turn warmer and sunnier in the south today. cloudier further north with still some rain to talk about during the next 48 hours. We've got low pressure sitting to the northwest of the UK, high pressure building in from the south. That is going to clear the skies across southern England and South Wales. It'll take some time, so some places not brightening up until early to mid-afternoon. The cloud remains for North Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and outbreaks of rain will move through parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still, it's going to be a warm afternoon for many, despite the cloud further north. It's not going to be chilly, and in the south, temperatures approaching the mid-20s. But we've got more persistent rain heading in for the end of the afternoon, heading into the evening for Northern Ireland into southwest Scotland. A few showers for many other parts of Scotland, a lot of cloud cover, and a keen breeze as well, particularly towards the north and the west. Lighter winds further south and a beautiful end to the day across Wales, the Midlands, the south of England. Once the sunshine turns up this afternoon in these places, we might not see much cloud around for at least a week or so. Now, the clear skies extend into northern England, parts of southern Scotland overnight, but Northern Ireland, many parts of central and northern Scotland keep the cloud. We've got further outbreaks of rain, mostly confined by the end of the night to the north of Scotland. A mild, if not warm night in places, mid-teens in the south. And then we start off with a lot of sunshine across many parts of England and East Wales. Still some cloud across western fringes and some low cloud at that, so murky around coasts. Outbreaks of rain continue to affect the north and northwest of Scotland, but for much of the rest of the UK it's drier and it's significantly warmer, 28 or 29 in the southeast.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Currently, drivers travelling on the A14 westbound in Northamptonshire are experiencing approximately 30-minute delays between Junction 2 at Kelmarsh and Junction 1 at Welford. Fortunately, traffic conditions are expected to improve soon. Over in Hampshire, motorists on the A34 southbound are facing delays of about 10 minutes due to heavy congestion. Additionally, a broken-down vehicle is causing moderate disruption on the A19 southbound exit slip in South Tyneside. Meanwhile, all lanes remain closed on the A47 eastbound in Norfolk, but it's anticipated that conditions will improve by this evening. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 37 minutes past 2. Now, updated guidance on single-sex spaces is expected to be published by the government today.
Yes, so the new code is designed to help organisations like hospitals, leisure centres and the like apply equality law, including rules around toilets, changing rooms and other single-sex services.
Well, let's take a look back over how the Labour Party cabinet view the issue and have done over the past.
A woman can have a penis.
Nick, I'm not... I don't think we can conduct this debate with, you know...
Sorry, have I offended you in some way?
No, it's just...
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Look, is it transphobic? Look...
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix, David?
I don't know if it's transphobic, but it's not accurate, Nick. I mean, obviously, it's probably the case that only that trans women don't have ovaries, but a cervix, I understand, is something that you can have following various procedures and hormone treatment and all the rest of it.
I think it's fair to say there's been a lot of confusion. So we're joined now by human rights campaigner and director of the Peter Tatchell Foundation, Peter Tatchell, and the CEO of the LGB Alliance, Kate Barker. Kate, the Supreme Court ruling on all of this was a long time ago, more than a year?
That's right, yeah.
Now we have this guidance being published by the Education Secretary. Does that draw a line under this?
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's really astonishing, isn't it, how the trans lobby groups have managed to somehow convince the world that if a man pops on a dress he may not be denied for anything that he wants, you know, and that includes identifying as a lesbian, identifying as a woman, to be able to use women-only spaces. And I think it's taken so long because that's a kind of a demonstration of how much this ideology has kind of gripped government. I think people are really, really fearful still about pushing back. They think, at worst, it must be illegal to say no to a man when he wants something. And at best, well, maybe I'm a bit bigoted, or I'm a bit nasty, or I'm a bit unkind. And I feel like that's what Peter might be talking about, how unkind it is to people, to men, to say, you may not go in a woman's space. So we're all in a kind of a big mess about it, where we feel kind of bad, like we're hurting people. But all this time, women, and particularly gay people, have been going through a really dark decade where we've been told we may not even call ourselves lesbians and have a lesbian space without accepting that a man who identifies as a lesbian can come in.
OK, let's get Peter's view on that then.
Well, first of all, let me say I've never heard any gay person say what you just claim. But that aside, the Supreme Court ruled that sex is based on biology. It said that organisations can discriminate against trans people if it's appropriate and proportionate, but they're not required to. So I have a friend who works in a women's centre. With the agreement of both the staff and the women users, they have accepted trans women for nearly 8 years. They tell me there's never, ever been a problem. I have trans women friends who've been using women's toilets for 20, 30, and even one case, 40 years, never had any complaint, never had a problem. Here at GB News, you've sensibly solved the problem. You have gender-neutral toilets, lockable cubicles, where both men, women and trans people can use those. I've asked the staff if they found it a problem. None of the staff members
Well, actually, we have women on the right, men on the left, actually, Peter. You clearly haven't been in there today.
Well, I haven't seen... I was in there today.
Go and check them out.
I was in there, but it's in the same space. But the point is, they are lockable cubicles, so people have absolute privacy. You've had this system working for the last year or more. It works well. I think other organisations can follow GB's News by having gender-neutral
So what are you
toilets.
saying? Are you saying that organisations should ignore this guidance coming from the Education Secretary? So if you run a sports team, or you run a restaurant, or you run a hospital even, that you should just ignore this and allow transgender women into the women's lose or the space or the team or the whatever?
As we know, sex is a protected characteristic under the Equality Act. So is gender reassignment. They're both protected characteristics. So we have to be very careful about annulling either of those rights. We have to find some compromise, some common ground.
But that's what the government's doing, isn't it? It's saying you should have one that is one loo, for example, that transgender people can use. They're trying to do some guidance on this, aren't they?
Well, that's it, and I'm hoping when the guidance comes, it's going to lay it out quite sensibly like that. But I just want to pick up on something Peter said. Firstly, I'm horrified by the idea of a women's centre. Now, I don't know whether it's a domestic violence centre or a rape crisis centre, which has a man in it, you know, and delivering services, and you say women don't mind. And I have to say that's a really male view. And I've seen very many interviews with very large, broad-shouldered, heavy men saying, I've been in the toilets at Waterloo Station and none of the women batted an eyelid. I can tell you, as a woman, what we do when we're in a situation where we're fearful of a man, like locked in a toilet, or if I'm in a changing room and I saw a man walking around naked, I would look away, I wouldn't make eye contact. If I was in public toilets, I might smile and nod to get away. That's a fear reaction, Peter. And this notion that women just don't mind is not borne out by the polls either. I mean, we've seen a poll this morning, hang on a sec, we've seen a poll this morning that said 97% of people, men and women, would prefer single-sex services. Now, it's quite right that gender-neutral services are also provided, so all these people who are clamouring for gender-neutral services, don't know who they are able to use them, but you cannot say, on the one hand, gender reassignment is a protected characteristic, and on the other hand, sex is a protected characteristic, and one to cancel out the other.
We're short on time, so let's bring back Peter in.
I absolutely do not agree with one cancelling the other. biology and gender identity are two different things. They're not the same. They're both equally valid and important for the people affected, and we should try to show kindness, love and care and compassion to solve the problem, because it is a tiny, tiny problem. I mean, I look at the statistics for the number of trans women who've created a problem in a woman's toilet. You can count on the fingers of one hand. That's, of course, wrong, absolutely wrong. 5 is too many. But it's a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Let's put things in proportion. Most trans women, you would never know they're trans. The heavy, big lorry-lifting guy, that's totally unrepresentative and untypical, and that's not what most trans women identify with. They pass for women, they look like women, they feel like women, they act like women.
You either have a single safe space or you don't.
This is the difficulty, though, is it not? That how is this actually going to be enforced? I mean, for example, there are going to be... I mean, your example that you gave, the extreme example of sort of a broad-shouldered, big bloke who's obviously a bloke, I mean, fine, like that's very, very obvious. But there are plenty of transgender people, particularly younger transgender people, who, I mean, in America, there has been a big, big problem, particularly for lesbians who might present a little bit more masculine or butch, who have been hounded out of women's toilets by people thinking they're protecting women, but actually they're hounding out a biological woman from that space. Is there that risk here?
I don't think there is, because we've got two stories going on here. One is Peter's story. These men have been using women's toilets for years and nobody's cared. For decades, nobody's minded. We've never heard a problem about it. And now, all of a sudden, women with short hair are being handed out of toilets. And just want to pick up on one thing. Where you're saying it's such a little problem and it's of no consequence, I'd just like to remind you about the woman who was raped by a trans woman in a Scottish prison, because in Scotland, they've decided that if a man says he's a woman, even if he's a rapist, he's going to be locked in the cell with another woman. Can you imagine the horror of that?
They've revoked that policy. That policy has been revoked. And, of course, that is totally condemnable. That person should have never been put in a women's prison. Anybody with any history or record of physical or sexual violence against a woman has no place in any women's
Well, you don't know if they're walking into the toilet, perhaps.
Well,
exactly. But anyway, Peter Tatchell and Kate Barker, thank you very much indeed. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up. But, yes, we are going to take a quick look at the forecast.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're heading away for this bank holiday weekend, well, there's plenty of sunshine across western areas of Europe. In the east, though, there are some thunderstorms as well as hail. But for the Canary Islands, plenty of sunshine, temperatures in the 20s. Similar story for Portugal, Spain, southern France as well as Italy. But as we head further east towards Greece and Turkey, that's where there's the risk of thunderstorms. There's hail in the mix with these showers as well. But it does look a bit drier into next week. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Nana Akua, weekends from 3 p.m.
Will not want to miss now. After escaping North Korea twice and surviving years of hardship, he's now campaigning for human rights and speaking out on global freedom issues here in Britain. And tonight he shares his journey, the political response to North Korea, and why he believes that the West must not stay silent. Well, I'm very pleased to say that I'm joined in the studio by Secretariat UK, all-party parliamentary group and human rights activist Timothy Cho.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Well, even at the reception, I was asked how did I escape from North Korea. And yes, I've been in the UK for 18 years now, but I escaped when I was 17, twice escaped. And I was imprisoned 4 times, 3 times in China, 1 time in North Korea. and especially experiencing that North Korean imprisonment. And this will continue in my eyes, how men and women being tortured and killed, and which I also treated terribly, and which I live with those scars inside and outside today. And I remember visiting Auschwitz last year, and I was sitting on my bed 3 days and remembering and what I saw there, exactly what I saw in North Korean prison cell.
So why were you escaping, first of all? What was it that was making you escape? Why did you need to go? Why was it so bad?
My parents first escaped, whom both of them were high school teachers in North Korea. So they escaped when I was turning age into 9 and 10.
They left you there?
Well, they just they didn't have other alternative choice. If they didn't make that choice, I think whole family could have taken into a prison camp.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 10 to 3. Now, a curious story for you. Over the last few days, we've been discussing the television reality star Gemma Collins, the GC, and the backlash she's received after promoting post-16 education on social media. Well, she's now taken to social media with a special shout-out for the People's Channel.
Guys, you can imagine the shock when I was just about to go to bed last night and I saw myself on GB News. Huge fan of GB News, by the way, and totally getting everyone's confusion, reactions. You know, love Bev. Bev is a vibe. Love them all on there. It's the only news that is on regularly in my house.
Well, we love you too, Gemma.
Can we just explain, just in case people haven't seen? So she did this sort of, these silly, well, a selection of videos, a series of videos with Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, where she sort of walked through the office and asked whether she could help with the education or ask her a few questions or whatever. And then the backlash has been furious.
I think the phrase was, right, how are we going to help the children? Yeah. Now, on the Late Show Live, I think it was last night, our colleague Bev Turner had a pretty scathing reaction to the Education Secretary.
It'd be good if we had that to show, wouldn't it?
Sit down with Gemma Collins. But now it seems that Gemma Collins is saying that there is more to come here. And I do think that the approach from the Education Department was trying to talk to people who perhaps didn't do that well in school, about why they didn't do that well in school and how they could have done better. However, it does seem like a strange series of videos.
Well, I mean, Gemma Collins has done very well for herself. I've got a soft spot for her. I find her hilarious. She's got a lot of charisma.
You're just saying that because she's watching?
Yeah. Hi, Gemma. Thanks for watching GB News. I'm glad you got it in the background most of the time at home.
Yeah.
Good stuff. See,
absolutely.
she's sound.
Well, I mean, maybe she can drum some sense into Bridget Phillipson.
Maybe. I mean, maybe Bridget Phillipson needs some of that Essex common sense, you know?
And I think it's a useful thing, although I'm in two minds about this. You know how, I think it's Jeremy Clarkson every year on Results Day says, don't worry about what you get in your results. I got 3 C's and a U and now I own, 5 houses or whatever else it is. I mean, he does a version of the same tweet every single year. And I think, OK, that's fine and good and well done. It worked out for you. But, I mean, there is value to education and you are more likely to do better if you do better in education. Of course, there are other routes as well. But, I mean, the sort of implication that people can give up, I think, is a bad one that is often promoted by a lot of people who happen to be lucky to make it.
It's confusing for children, isn't it? You're told it doesn't matter, but then you're told to work really hard at school, so there you go.
So maybe Gemma Collins can drum some sense into people and say, actually, it does matter. Well...
She likes GB News, so that's nice. Anyway, thanks for watching. Good afternoon, Britain. It is Martin...
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hotter weather is on the way for this bank holiday weekend and it's starting to turn warmer and sunnier in the south today. Cloudier further north with still some rain to talk about during the next 48 hours. We've got low pressure sitting to the northwest of the UK, high pressure building in from the south. That is going to clear the skies across southern England and South Wales. It'll take some time. So some places not brightening up until early to mid-afternoon. The cloud remains for North Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and outbreaks of rain will move through parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still, it's going to be a warm afternoon for many, despite the cloud further north. It's not going to be chilly, and in the south, temperatures approaching the mid-20s. But we've got more persistent rain heading in for the end of the afternoon, heading into the evening for Northern Ireland into southwest Scotland. A few showers for many other parts of Scotland, a lot of cloud cover, and a keen breeze as well, particularly towards the north and the west. Lighter winds further south and a beautiful end to the day across Wales, the Midlands, the south of England. Once the sunshine turns up this afternoon in these places, we might not see much cloud around for at least a week or so. Now, the clear skies extend into northern England, parts of southern Scotland overnight, but Northern Ireland, many parts of central and northern Scotland keep the cloud. And we've got further outbreaks of rain, mostly confined by the end of the night to the north of Scotland. A mild, if not warm night in places, mid-teens in the south. And then we start off with a lot of sunshine across many parts of England and East Wales. Still some cloud across western fringes and some low cloud at that, so murky around coasts. Outbreaks of rain continue to affect the north and northwest of Scotland, but for much of the rest of the UK it's drier and it's significantly warmer, 28 or 29 in the southeast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're counting down to a spectacular summer. It's your chance to win £76,543 and 21 pence in totally tax-free cash. A lump sum that you could have in time to splash out with this summer. And because it's tax-free, you get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.